Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 63.
Are you playing Pac-Man?
Maybe.
So much for the open I had planned.
Where did I go? Get him.
Really, are you going to play through the whole podcast?
I'm really good, yeah. You ain't heard me die yet, have you?
So, you started a game of Pac-Man at the beginning of this podcast.
Well, you guys weren't doing anything. I was bored.
Impatient much?
Just go on and talk amongst yourselves. I'll be with you in a minute.
Apparently not a minute if you're as good as you
Are you
planned.
dead?
No, I finished the maze.
You finished the maze.
Should I play the next one?
No. We have a podcast to do.
All right.
Can you pause it?
Yeah.
What site is that?
It's not. It's a YouTube video.
Oh.
I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
You're not starting over?
Nope.
I'm Glenn.
It's better than what I had planned.
That's the chaos of our podcast right there. Great stuff.
Just when you guys think you have us figured out, and the Vortex boys, they're going to say something witty, and then we're going to have to laugh at it like it's, not pre-planned or something. We threw that at you.
Well, welcome to 63 of Traveling the Vortex.
That's right, episode 63.
I'm all thrown off now because...
We're getting closer and closer to the big 100.
Oh, and I have such
Every
things
week.
planned.
Oh, Sean's got big things planned for the 100.
Ooh.
Nice. Oh.
You know
Your
why?
schedule doesn't go out that far.
Because there are big things planned for number 75, and it comes before 100.
All right. What
How
do
was
you
your
guys?
guys this week?
Very good.
Tiring.
Yeah, it was exhausting, especially for Sean and I. We have a project we're working on that we can't divulge much because of contracts we've signed. However, we can say that
That was a really interesting text message, too. Don't post any of those photos! Okay.
Oops.
Sean and I are engaging in an endeavor with a friend of ours who owns Berkeley Square Media, and we shot the pilot. Actually, yeah, because the first one was a demo. So we shot the pilot episode of a series that'll be airing later this year, and as we're able to divulge more information when it becomes available, we will do so. But
And I
needless
got
to
stuck
say,
working Glenn's shift on
unfortunately,
Friday.
Keith couldn't help out because he was having to fill in for me. But no, we worked all day there've been a lot of preps up to this point, but Friday was actually our first shooting day.
First full day of shooting.
And it went as well as can be expected in some aspects and not in others.
I think it went really well.
No,
there's nothing...
It was smooth. We just
There are things that I could complain about, but those are the things that, with any production of this magnitude,
there's going to be growing
you're going to
pains.
hit those little...
I think
I didn't expect to come home windburned.
Yeah,
wind chapped.
I wasn't so much wind chapped as I was sunburned.
Sunburned. I mean, those little things. It's like I probably should have packed that and didn't.
We had a perfect day though for shooting.
God,
it was so good. But I think our time management will need to improve. But
drastically,
yeah. But it went well, and that was a lot of hard work. But I think the finished product will show. I think it'll be totally worth it in the final product. So
it'll be one of those things people look at and go, "You were involved in that."
Yeah. So
that's nothing like your podcast.
Again, because we can't disclose much at this point, that's about all we can say about it. So had a lot of fun though. Did you have fun?
I did.
I'm not under
even though you're
contract,
still
so I
sore.
can talk about
That's
it.
true. That's true. Although we might get in trouble as a subtle arm of that. Since we're involved in this show,
Dave told me about it.
I
could cite it from Dave.
You're in full. You're. We'd be in breach of contract
Dave's
if we
under
were.
contract too.
If we were. Yeah, he is now.
Yeah.
Being connected to this show, we'd be in breach of contract if we let you speak. So
they're silencing me.
I got the gag roll on. No, it was. It's like I said. At the end of the day, I was beat and exhausted and wiped and tired and sore. I'm still sore. But it was all the good kind. It was all the, we put something together, and I hope it's going to be, the fruits of our labor will, as that expression go, laborers bear fruit, something.
You got me.
Chrissy, you're smart. Figure that one out. Something about the fruits of your labor.
We were exhausted,
backwards.
But we still both managed to participate in Friday Night.
We did.
Yes, you did.
I didn't come here, but I joined in from home and made my first purchase of a Seventh Doctor story this week in the nick of time, because I recalled back to the days when Barnes & Noble was open until 11 o'clock at night. I did not realize they changed their hours. Now, I thought I think I did know they changed their hours. However, I thought I'd be safe on Friday and Saturday because I thought for sure they were still open till 11. So I got in the car at 9:51 and was driving over there casually. I got off the highway and I thought, it seems to me like they changed their hours. And I looked at my clock, and at the time I got off the highway, it was 9:54. And I thought, I probably ought to zoom over there. So I got in there, walked in the door at 9:58, and as I walked in, the manager standing at the door said, "We're closing in 2 minutes." And I said, "That's okay, I know exactly what I'm getting." And I beelined to the back of the store, into the DVD section, and went right to it. And the guy in the DVD section says, "Can I help you find something?" And I said, "No, I've got it right now." And I picked it up, and I carried it up. I said, "Nick of time, right?" And he said, "Well, we can't actually close the doors until people are out the store." So once I breached the threshold, I was okay. But yeah, I purchased that, took it home, opened it up, popped it in, and waited for you guys, and then pushed play at midnight.
We had a similar experience this morning. Jesse had to go to work, and we got up. Wasn't happy about it because we had a very late night playing Borderlands last night. On top of the late night Friday.
And the time change, too.
And the time change, which we didn't take into account. I'd completely spaced that off. So now all of my texts and tweets and website posts should be CDT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
We're in
Central Daylight Time.
Okay. Anyway.
Since we're the only nation in the world that...
They decided they wanted breakfast, so we were on our way to McDonald's, and I'm looking at the clock, and it's like 10:47 when we left the house, and I'm like... McDonald's doesn't serve breakfast after 10:30. It used to be 11, but it's not. It's 10:30. And then I started thinking about it. I thought,
it's 11 on Sunday still.
I think they changed that again. Because certain McDonald's are at certain different times.
It's 10:30 all during the week, but Sunday has always been 11
we got there, we pulled up into the drive-thru at 10:58. And I looked, and they hadn't changed the board yet. It still had breakfast on. I was like, I'm safe, because as long as that board says breakfast, it's breakfast.
Yeah, but I pulled through late at night before they start serving breakfast, and it's been switched, and I can't get breakfast.
Yeah, that's annoying, because a lot of the places that are 24 hours, they have to come out and swivel the sign if they don't have one of the electric ones. Yeah. Because they lock them in, essentially, at night, and they can't leave the store. As long as
I can't see half the menu. How do I know what I want to order?
It's ridiculous.
Not my problem. If it says breakfast, I'm having breakfast.
I say bump that best breakfast time up.
Yeah, exactly.
3 o'clock in the morning. If I'm ready for breakfast,
that's what it's up at 2 now, I think.
Well, is it 3? You can get breakfast after 3?
Last time I remember was 3.
You remember the joke in, is it Big Daddy, the Adam Sandler movie?
Yeah.
When they go to McDonald's, and they're joking about bring me back this, and the kid wants, breakfast, and he can't get it. They keep trying to talk him into a Happy Meal. And as they walk back, Rob Schneider goes, "What is that?" He says, "It's a Big Mac." He says, "I wanted an Egg McMuffin." He says, "We can't get it. I thought they served breakfast till 11." So did I. And there was this big joke about it because they used to be until 11 and it wasn't anymore. So.
Yeah, well, it is on Sunday for sure, but it's 10:30 the rest of the week. So
this is riveting.
What was it? The other one was what was it? Was it Falling Down? That one with Michael Douglas where he goes on that just deranged morning and he goes in and he pulls the gun on the McDonald's workers
because he can't get breakfast.
Yeah,
and then he relents and orders the hamburger, and then has problems because it doesn't look like the picture.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of hamburger, have you heard about the? You guys are in the news. You should probably hear about this. The pink slime. Did you hear about this?
I did. I read that. I actually read that on Facebook or Twitter or something
about that. Yeah.
Ugh.
It's meat byproducts. I eat them in hot dogs. No, I think that's a little seedy and underhanded, but
filler.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all it is.
I've never assumed McDonald's burgers.
Well, no, we're talking meat that you go in that's like prepackaged in the store.
In the store.
If you don't have a butcher behind the counter cutting it for you or grounding it for you, if it's prepackaged, if it's the ones like especially in the tube. What it is it's only like a third hamburger, if even that, and the majority of it is what they call pink slime, and it's meat byproduct that they take, and it's basically scooped up after meat's been processed or chopped or whatever. They throw it into a machine. What do they call that? The thing that they spin?
A centrifuge.
Centrifuge. You put it in a centrifuge. They spin it, and then basically they take what's left out of that. They put it in a pan. They send it through another machine that sprays it with ammonia that kills all of the bacteria, and then they take and they send that out to the places that the meat packing plants and the butcher stores and things like that pre-process the meat, and they package it all together, and then like 2/3 of it is.
After the ammonia, they spray it with more like beef flavor.
Yeah, I did read that.
It tastes like beef,
and a hamburger.
Oh yeah,
and then
hamburger.
they sell it, because it is meat, because it's byproducts of meat. They don't have to put on there what it is, because that's all the FDA requires. And I guess the gal that signed off on this years ago when it first started happening is now some corporate bigwig in the company that does this, that started this process.
How ironic.
So, yeah. Surprise, surprise. So
Just once, I'd like to meet somebody who does not sell out for the greater good of humanity. Just once.
Google it. Pink slime. It'll come up. That's
a trending
Sean's
topic
right. It's trending huge.
And ironically, I think McDonald's was like one of the corporations that was absolved of they didn't find any. I think I read that somewhere after the story broke. But
That's because they got in trouble so much with having actual meats in their hamburgers that they.
No, not to mention they put riboflavin in their French fries too.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that.
Certain flavor. Well, I am too.
You want to have beef injected French fries? Woohoo!
Well, but it's not fair to the vegetarians, because
I'm not a
riboflavin
vegetarian.
is a meat product. But
Well,
I mean,
it's not fair to the vegans.
Think of it if you were a vegan or a vegetarian, and you're getting fries that you suspect are, whole potatoes, and you find out that they're being infused with riboflavin. I mean,
I'm sorry, if I were a vegetarian, I wouldn't trust any fast food restaurant to begin with.
Well, that's true too. But what I'm saying is, I mean, we can all sit and say that, but I mean, on the base surface of it, that's not fair.
No disrespect to anybody who
and not
has
disclose it,
chosen
I
that,
should say.
Particular lifestyle. But we have pointed teeth. So
I don't know. I tell you, I love meat. I love my meat. That's what I crave. However, I have two friends that have gone to vegetarian lifestyles, and one of which is now entirely vegan, and they both are much healthier. They lost tons of weight. Not like because I'm not eating weight. It's like very healthy. They're very healthy. They feel better. And in fact, now I have one that tried a hamburger since then and actually got sick from it. And their lifestyle is so much better, and they're so much happier. Their moods are better. It's an incredible change, and you kind of wonder if maybe there's something there. I don't think I could ever get away from meat.
I knew a vegetarian who was constantly sick.
Oh well, I'd say there's always the other side of the coin.
I would think it had more to do with not eating all of the byproducts.
Well, that's probably what it is.
Pollutions
as well.
and ammonia.
But if that's a benefit of getting off of meat, you're avoiding all of that altogether.
There
having
are
to
ways to do it without.
That's just it.
Complete.
But I guess my point is, maybe because I'm lazy, but my point is, you could go through the effort of going totally organic.
I'd be totally healthy if I didn't have to put any effort in.
Yeah, exactly. But you could go, or you could go a simpler route and just go to. Yeah, vegan is. I think I could go with vegetarian. I don't think I could go entirely vegan.
I can go without meat. I don't like vegetables enough.
Yeah.
I eat salads all the time.
I think there's enough vegetables out there. Of course, I'm the weird guy that likes broccoli and likes cauliflower and likes asparagus and I don't know why. I have whatever. I
like broccoli. I like asparagus.
I have whatever that DNA. They always say that like 1 in every 8th person has I don't know if it's DNA makeup, but it's something that.
You're genetically predisposed to enjoy those.
Yeah, exactly. And I have no idea why, because my kids don't like them, my wife doesn't like them, and so we went to Golden Corral today, and boy, I loaded up with the veggies because that's where I can actually get the veggies I like. So, speaking about tangenting,
you went to Golden Corral,
yes.
For vegetables.
Well, I didn't go there just for vegetables because I had the big old slab of sirloin, which is it's funny. I had broccoli, I had cauliflower, I had mixed vegetables, and I had corn on the cob.
I like corn.
That was half of my plate. The other half, honest to God, this is why I can't be a vegetarian, was a big slab of sirloin steak, shrimp, like the pan-seared shrimp, because they do that on Sundays. Bourbon Street chicken. I did put rice on there because I have to have rice with my Bourbon Street chicken. Then I saw they had like sirloin tips in there that were like caramelized with onions and so I put that on my plate along with this little slab of sirloin. And what was the other meat? Oh, and ham. They had a big. So I've got this like
at least
smorgasbord of meat on one side and veggies on the other. But by the time I was done, I didn't even want dessert. I was so full. I was like, oh, forget that. That's all. I'm good.
Oh, and they got the chocolate fountain.
I did. Well, I don't do the chocolate fountain. I'm not a big fan of chocolate, but my kids love it. In fact, they're the ones that talked us into going to Golden Corral because it's the chocolate wonderfall.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I was corrected on that several times today because I kept calling it the chocolate waterfall, and Caitlin kept saying, "Daddy, it's wonderful." Okay. So anyway, that's what I did this week. I went to shot an episode and went to Golden Corral and bought my first Seventh Doctor. What'd you guys do this week?
Sarah and I I've been battling all week sinus congestion. So if you hear some sniffling,
you have sounded,
I'm sorry.
You have sounded bad at work this week.
Yeah. Tuesday I called in sick.
Yeah. In which I had to fill your ship. No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. I didn't call in sick because of the sinuses. The sinuses came on after my initial sickness. And
you thought you had food poisoning, right?
Yeah, I think I ate something I picked up at a gas station really bad.
Did you learn from me?
It was the egg salad sandwich in the container, right?
I was hoping I'd get worms and get really smart.
Futurama, I got it.
We keep throwing them out there, hoping that you'll,
I latch onto a few of them that I remember.
Throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
But then the sinuses kicked in, and I think part of it was allergies. And of course, the day I was sick, Tuesday, was one of the most gorgeous days of the week.
Oh, God, it was 74.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing that rivaled it was Saturday.
But here, look at it this way.
I would
look at the silver lining. You would have got up at 11:45, came in and work at 12:40 or 12:30, and been at work until it was dark anyway.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
The only time you'd have seen the light of day is when you stepped outside to smoke a cigarette.
Of about 45 minutes of that gorgeous day.
That's true.
So look at the bright side.
I did get caught up on some TV.
See, there you go.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Monty Python.
I know.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to finish.
You didn't join in.
So. That's with that song. That's as much as you have to do. It's not Knights of the Round Table, which we'd have to sing in its entirety. So please, nobody break into that one because I'm a little fuzzy on some of the lyrics.
Although that's not my favorite part of that. It's the Christmas in Heaven is my favorite part of that movie. For reasons we won't disclose.
Well, we were lucky that Saturday was also just as gorgeous because Sarah and I went and got our engagement pictures taken.
Oh, great. When did those come in?
We're going to get about... Apparently he took like 700.
Wow.
Dollars?
No, 700
photos.
pictures.
Okay.
No, it was much more than $700.
No, actually it wasn't.
Oh, good.
A friend of ours. Or a friend of hers. I went to high school with him, so I knew him. So
Did you wear the fez?
I did not wear the fez. We did do some with the Sonics.
Oh, cool.
Aww.
Yeah. I'm not... I hope those turn out
Are you
really
giving
well.
out pictures?
Actually, we're going to do photo invitations.
Cool.
And then we're going to print up some pictures, too.
Okay.
So.
And, of course,
I'd love to have a picture.
All of you listening are invited, so we'll post
Especially
that on
if
the
there's
website.
Sonics involved. Especially if you get the Sonic ones and their Sonics are involved. That would
Dude, our listeners give great gifts. You should.
That's true. Send in your address if you want an invitation so you can send a gift.
No, we're just going to post it on the website so that everybody can see, and then...
The further away, the better.
You want this sent where?
And then he took about 700. By today, he had whittled it down to 400, getting the blanks and everything out because he did a bunch of rapid fire stuff.
Sure.
And he's going to send us like a spreadsheet or something of like 400 or of like 150. He hopes that we can kind of choose from the best of the best. And we're also getting digital copies of all.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if we're getting all 700.
Not the blinks.
But yeah, surely he's going to eliminate this one isn't good, this one isn't good. So we'll also get digital copies with it, which is awesome.
This one's got my thumb in it. Did you want it?
And then after...
But it's life. That's what happens.
That's why I'm not a photographer.
I found and picked up my 11th Doctor Burgundy costume shirt.
It's not burgundy. Come on, don't go there.
The shirt that goes.
It's
with
not
the
lilac,
burgundy
but
tie.
that one in there is a little lilac.
It's the shirt that goes with the burgundy tie.
It's not burgundy.
As close as I can get.
I'll give you it. It's the shirt that goes with the burgundy tie, and the shirt that you got is very close, very, very, very close matching to the one that's
Without buying the fabric and making it myself. That's the only way we can do it.
Backpedal.
No. I have said all along it is that.
I never said it was a
is
red
a copy
shirt
of
to
that
begin
shirt.
with.
You did not. You sat here.
I said, look, I got my shirt.
Yeah, who's the one that brought it up? It was
Hang on,
red.
Hang on.
You did.
No, you
sat
said
here.
last weekend, didn't you, that it was red?
I
looking for a red
I
shirt.
was looking for. Yeah.
Okay,
a red
that's where I got
shirt.
the red
Looking
from.
To go,
Okay,
the shirt to
that's-
go with the
that's-
red tie is what
No,
I
you
meant.
said you were
That's
looking
what
for a
I
red
meant.
shirt.
You sat here at this table and you gave him this over the glasses look as he held up the shirt and went, meh.
That's not true.
And then started
you know
picking on the
why?
color.
You know what part of that's not true? The fact that I would look over my glasses, because if I did that, I wouldn't be able to see the shirt.
He has blindfolders.
I do. I'm looking like this if it was anything.
From over there, it looked like you gave him one of these.
No.
And you were all like,
No, the shirt. I will go on record to say that shirt is the closest thing you're going to find,
Yeah, yeah.
or could possibly find right now without, like you said, buying the material. The only thing that I was disputing is the fact that somebody, I thought it was you, maybe it was Sean. It was probably it was Sean.
I might have said I was looking at red stripes and saying those are
Maybe
right.
that's what I got that, but I said that's not red. Now, after that, who kept arguing? No, that's red. That's red. Who argued that?
I did.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got
not
red stripes in it.
It does have. Nah, I don't even think those are red, but it's got stripes in it.
It's got red and white stripes. I've studied it closely.
It is some
trust me.
sort
Not that one.
It is some
That
sort
one.
of shade of
That
red.
one has red stripes. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah,
see
really
that
small
close.
red stripes.
Okay.
That's part of the pinstriping in it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's even better then.
Yeah.
But that
And you're
shirt
going-
is not red.
And you're going to wear your red
Regardless of what
shirt.
you. Actually, can
for,
you take a picture of that, put that on the website? Because I want people to say,
Well, yeah.
"Oh, Sean, that is not red."
Because he's going to cosplay as
They can see
11th
it
Doctor.
in my costume.
I want a
on the
picture
Planet
of
Comic
it
Con
hanging this week so that I can be justified by the time we record the
Planet
next
Comic Con
podcast.
is
Next
3
no,
weeks.
2 weekends.
2 weekends ago.
2 weekends.
2 weekends. 2
Ago?
weekends ago. 2 weeks, 2
Oh, we
weekends
missed.
ago.
We missed it.
Dang it.
Darn it.
I'm
2
sure it was
weekends
nice.
away.
Two weekends coming up.
Quick,
and
to the
so on.
TARDIS.
I'm going to play some more Pac-Man.
So if any of our listeners are going to be going to Planet Comic Con and are in the area, make sure if you see me in my 11th Doctor costume, stop me, say hello, mention that you listen to the podcast.
You want to try that again in English?
Stop me, say hello, and mention that you listen to the podcast.
Almost.
He almost said God pass, didn't he? At least he didn't say pod race.
I thought he was going for cod piece.
Say hi
And all our listeners are going, Keith bought a cod piece?
for my 11th
When did the doctor wear a
costume.
cod piece?
I'm sure the other are going, what is wrong with these guys? I don't know. Earlier they were talking about doing pink slime and circling down ammonia. I'm pretty sure they're hallucinating. I think I heard Pac-Man. Are we wearing our scarves?
I hadn't considered. I hadn't come to a decision yet. Let me put it that way.
Depending on how it is outside.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm worried about
74.
because you talked about how miserable it. I mean, it was nice and fun because it was Doctor Who, but you were talking about how after the first day
that's
you
what
were
really
like,
worries me
yeah,
is every time KC Planet Comic Con comes around. That's a mouthful for me.
just say Planet Comic Con.
every time Planet Comic Con.
You always say Kansas City Comic Con, so if you just substitute Kansas City with Planet Comic Con, you're at least more accurate.
I think the actual name though is KC Planet Comic Con.
It's Kansas City Planet
Kansas
Comic Con
City.
is what it is.
Anyway, every time it comes around, we always get like that freak snowstorm that decides to hit in the middle of spring.
It's Planet Comic Con, Kansas City.
That's what it is. 2 years ago, it was just rain.
Yeah, but it was
But last year, but it was really cold. Last year wasn't near as cold, but it snowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we were in there, and then
Yeah.
by the time we came out, it was
Yeah,
all
and
gone.
it was
So-
one of those. I mean, because it was late March, it was melted. It wasn't like sticking or anything, but it was coming down.
Yeah. So it's always that weird freak weather. But then you get inside, and it's so packed that it's like
And this year,
I remember how warm-
this year's bound to be.
I remember how warm I was
Yeah.
just walking around there in a t-shirt.
Yeah,
so
I may have
keep
to
thinking,
strip off
God,
my
I don't know if
tweed.
I really want to wear my scarf. I'm still tossing around the idea of trying to come up with a fourth Doctor outfit.
Really?
Yeah, I'm kind of running out of time, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
got
Did you shave?
2 weeks.
yeah, I'd shave. I'd have to get a curly wig too because I couldn't do it without changing my hair. My hair's not long enough. Sean, when I first met him, he had super curly hair.
I did.
And it was long.
I had the white boy afro going on.
He did,
It
and
was bad.
he would have been the perfect Fourth Doctor cosplayer. Actually, he looked a lot more like Al Yankovic. And he always wore Hawaiian shirts, too, when I first met him. So.
I still do.
You do from time to time, but you don't as much.
Mostly
Not
in
as much.
summer.
You used
Mostly
to.
in the
You
summer,
used
yeah.
to wear them like every day.
Well, I
all year
enjoyed them.
round.
I enjoyed them.
I used to wear one.
there you go.
If I could find a TARDIS-covered Hawaiian shirt, that would be the most
wouldn't that
awesome
awesome?
Hawaiian shirt ever.
Oh.
I'm sure you could find somebody to make that. I'm sure there's material out there. We should move on to news.
News! This week in news, kind of small. They're still filming Doctor Who, but it's just been announced.
This just in. Doctor Who's still not on.
Yes. Ben Browder from Farscape is going to star in a Doctor Who episode, and he was also on Stargate SG-1.
Did you guys watch Farscape?
I didn't.
At all?
I've heard it's fantastic.
I watched it initially and loved it. It was the most incredible show, and it was inventive and nifty. And you want to talk about anthropomorphized aliens? None.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I watched
the
it.
fact that
Muppets
they
were fantastic.
used Muppets in it, yeah.
I mean, the Muppets were fantastic.
It's on
Although-
Netflix. I mean to go back and relook.
As the show went on, they did start to recycle because I'm pretty sure the Skeksis showed up in one episode as a space-fearing race. It was
would
the
be cool.
same puppets, and it was like, okay. But I didn't get, because it was on Sci-Fi, and it was at that time that we didn't get Sci-Fi here, that I didn't get to stick with it real religiously, and I kind of fell off the wagon. Now, Mel watched it religiously, and to the point where she bought the DVD set. She owns all
nice.
Farscape, and I think that's coming up next at some point on the list of things we're going to sit down and watch as a family. And mow through that. But
Well, let me know when you start because that's when I'll start. Because I've seen.
Okay.
I think
me too.
I think I
I'll watch it
started
on
in like
Netflix.
the second or third season and watched a chain of them, but and then I lost.
My friend Blake
I didn't lose interest. I
raved
just
about
quit.
it for years,
Yeah,
and I just never watched it.
I just quit watching. I didn't have time.
Well, if you Google Doctor Who Hawaiian shirts, you get 400 pages of John Nathan Turner.
That's who you should go as. Yeah, no one would get it, but you should go
That
as
would be
Jonathan
the
Nathan
most
Turner. That'd be
awesome
awesome.
costume. And
You kinda
well, see,
have
I
you
used
have
to
the
look
look,
like John
too,
Nathan
yeah,
Turner.
yeah.
I don't anymore. He's got the curly hair, but
Yeah.
see, I totally used to look like that.
You totally did.
Oh wow, is that Colin? Look at Colin Baker. Look at this photo.
He's got quite a fro there too, doesn't he?
Let me.
That is a fro.
I wish you at home could see
Sean
this.
will post
'cause
this on the
is just
website now because
a great photo of the two of them. It's JNT and Colin Baker at I assume a con.
convention of some sort.
And they're both wearing Hawaiian shirts with bad hair. That's awesome.
80s hair, right?
Yeah.
80s curls.
Wow. Okay, sorry.
What else was going on in news?
And that's pretty much it.
So Ben Browder,
We got some
Farscape, and
birthdays.
Birthdays, yes.
Birthdays this week.
Oh, man.
Actually, a
As
lot of
we
them today,
recorded,
but one of them
a
yesterday.
happy belated birthday to Douglas Adams.
No, Douglas was today.
No,
Well-
technically not anymore. It's after midnight.
Well, it's not belated. Today is still Sunday.
I was
For
on
all
time.
intents and purposes, yes. The belated one from this point of view would be Yiji.
Yes.
Yiji So. So?
Yiji So.
He turned 37 on Saturday. Although we determined why that. I thought that was Sunday.
And there was one earlier this week, too, wasn't there? We had...
Did we have one earlier this week? You didn't post it if we did.
Yes, we did. Roger Delgado.
Oh, yeah, Delgado. Yeah, he would have turned...
That was last week.
94.
It's the first. I guess it was
He would have
last
turned
week,
94 on March 1st. So... Oh, yeah, that was the week before. That was before
You're right.
March 1st, yeah.
But Douglas Adams.
Well, we missed
We
saying
didn't talk
happy
about it.
birthday.
Of course, we don't. I don't know if we frequently talk about them unless they fall on podcast nights.
Right,
but-
right.
Yeah.
The big one today is...
I think there's three big ones.
well, that's what I'm saying. The big day, the big birthday
Yeah.
today is today. And that's Graham Harper, who's been associated with Doctor Who since the Pertwee years. He's a director.
Been a director.
He started off, I believe, as a line producer
Probably.
on Colony in Space, I think.
Could be.
But he's more known as a director. He's done a lot of stuff in the new series, including the Age of Steel, Rise of the Cybermen,
Army of Ghosts,
Army of Ghosts
Doomsday,
and
yeah.
Doomsday.
Did
Stolen
Army of
Earth,
Ghosts and
Journey's
Doomsday.
End, Waters of
Waters of
Mars.
Mars.
Utopia was another one of his.
Oh.
I didn't post all of them on the website, so
He's done several of the Sarah Jane.
several of the
Adventures.
Sarah Janes,
And then-
including our favorite from season 1, Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
nice.
one of his.
The best thing he's ever directed, ever, In my opinion, it's Caves of Androzani. So.
That's the big one. That's the one he's known for.
Androzani. Also, sharing a birthday today are John Barrowman. Everybody knows him as Captain Jack Harkness, and Alex Kingston, who was River Song. And then the big one, the one that I was most excited about, but that's just because I'm such a huge Douglas Adams fan, would have been Douglas Adams' birthday today as well. He would have turned 60.
What did he die of?
I think it was cancer.
Was it cancer?
I believe, yeah. I believe so.
I knew he was taken from us too soon, but I don't think I ever knew the full story on what exactly happened. And when I was posting that on the website and realized how young he went, it was like, wow. Because he's been gone for 10 years now?
I want to say it was the late 90s, so probably a little more than 10 years, yeah. He actually started working on treatment. Well, he'd had a treatment of the film for several years, and actually is credited with not only coming up with the concept of the story, but he's also credited with some of the writing on the film as well, because he was integral in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, the Disney movie that came out, because it took them nearly 20 years to get that thing. So it was 2001. Okay, so it was early 2000.
10 years.
And so he's actually credited on his work on that as well. So,
just for the record, if there's anybody out there that doesn't like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy film with Alan Rickman and Martin Freeman and everybody, you're
Sam
off your rocker.
It's
such a fun, glorious little film.
It is.
It may
think
not
I've
stick
said this
entirely too close to
no, wait a minute, no. I'm gonna. This is where I'm going with this, because
notice how I kicked open that door for him.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked about this before, but there is no version of Hitchhiker's Guide that is the same. They are their own.
Nothing consistent.
They're all their own, because the radio play is what originally came first, and then he wrote a book, and then there was a TV series, or maybe I have those backwards. No, it was a book, and then a miniseries, TV series, miniseries, and then there was the movie. And throughout the course of that, each one has had its own sequels for those as well. But the entire series, each incarnation of the series are different. And going into that, knowing that, when you go into the film, and for the people that say, I didn't like the film because it wasn't anything like the book, or I didn't like the book because it's not anything like the TV series. You shouldn't, because they're different. They're
there's
different
even a video
entities. Yeah, the video game as well, the text-based video game. Yeah. That you shouldn't hold any of them together and say, well, I don't like this one better. I don't like this one because it wasn't this. Because none of them are, and they never were intended to be.
It's like looking at Batman and looking at Adam West's version of Batman.
Best Batman ever.
The quadrilogy and from 89 to 97, Nolan, and the animated series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all different takes.
I'll give you
on the
that.
same
I think that's a little different, because all of these are still Douglas Adams driving the helm of all of these, with the exception of the movie not having as much of an influence from him. But he had script approval over all of it.
Yeah.
So I can sort of surmise that, except for
they didn't put nipples.
The stories are initially the same throughout the Hitchhiker's Guide trilogy, with the exception of they have variations of when things happen and what happens.
Yeah, I guess that is
that
very great.
So that's the best I would have been able to come up with. So I'll give you that.
When are we getting the second one? That's what I want.
We won't. It didn't do well enough in the theaters. It did well, but it didn't do well enough. And they wrote the ending in such a way that they knew they would not have to do a sequel to
more.
It. I would agree. I would love to see. I would love to see Restaurant at the End of the Galaxy. Or the universe. I would love to see Restaurant. That would be so awesome.
Alan Rickman was phenomenal. Zoe Deschanel was phenomenal.
Zoe Deschanel was Zoe Deschanel.
That was a total different take on Marvin than I would have.
Oh, I loved
that.
Marvin.
Was the look of Marvin anyway. I loved that. That was so well done. I was a little leery about
Sam Rockwell at times. A bit over the top for me.
Zaphod can
for
be
that
though,
character.
but yeah. But
I was slightly.
I was a little worried about that
after reading the books. I always got the impression it was more two heads next to each other.
It is, and it was always like that in the series. And
the tilting.
I appreciated. Yeah, I appreciated the creative license on doing it that way, because it actually sort of made more sense.
Yeah.
And I think it translates better to film, too, because...
It's cheaper to do.
Well,
too.
it is. But you watch the TV series, the miniseries, and it's really badly done because it's literally a fabricated head, and it doesn't work very well. But
And Mos Def was great.
Moss. Did you really say Moss?
Mos
Def.
Most Def.
Moss.
It's
And of course,
Moss.
Martin Freeman was fantastic.
Martin
Yes.
Freeman. Yeah.
Sarah and I are going back, and I'm introducing her to Sherlock. We just watched the season 2 premiere. I've decided that I would love to see someone like his portrayal of Watson be the Doctor's next companion.
That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting.
It'd be almost more like a Harry Sullivan type person to bring back.
I'd be all right with Harry Sullivan coming. Well, we couldn't, but I'd
Can't, but yeah.
But that type of character.
Yeah, that type of
I
character.
think
I'd be
that'd
great with that.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Well, let's move on to feedback.
Feedback. We've got some feedback.
Yay! That was good. I like it. We don't have a little on the end. That's fantastic. Our first the first bit of feedback.
We all can talk right.
Yeah, well, this is me every week. Though. Comes from Odd Duck Phil, and Odd Duck Phil writes, comment question, commento quesito. He really wrote commento quesito.
Yeah, I know. You guys are just going to... Not like we ever flog a dead horse.
We'll warn you about this one. This has some YouTube links that we're going to have to just place on the website for reference, but we'll have notes, show notes.
We can talk about what each
we
link
certainly
is.
will. He writes, "Hey, who Peekins? Been busy the last couple of weeks, hence the quiet. I've got a potpourri of stuff, so I'll just launch into them as they come to me. This feedback brought to you by YouTube. When you need a quick random clip to sum up your thoughts, try YouTube." Number 1. Can't remember if I chimed in or not. So, at the risk of being redundant, congratulations, Keith. And I'll also go ahead and throw a wedding idea at you since my fiance has politely said we won't be using it. Get the priest / minister / rabbi / judge / captain to start things off with this. And it's the clip from The Princess Bride.
I had to explain it to Sarah.
Marriage.
What?
She hasn't seen The Princess Bride, apparently.
Marriage.
You're not allowed to marry this woman.
I'm going to introduce it to her before the wedding.
It better be before the wedding.
I showed her the clip.
I had certain criteria for Holly. And
How?
I showed her the clip, and she thought it was great.
Well,
Regardless, thank you, Phil.
yes.
For the congratulations.
So, again, links in the show notes, so be sure to go look at it if you've never seen it. But if you have, you're laughing right along with us because
If
you know
you haven't
exactly
seen
what
it,
it is.
just go watch the movie, and when it gets to that part, you'll know.
Yes, absolutely. You should see the film if you've never seen
Yeah.
the film.
how? That's all I can get out.
I don't know. I've added it to the list. I didn't realize you hadn't seen it either.
Phil goes on to write, number 2, love the RTD recap. I know that Moffat is the man right now and can tell some amazing stories, but it's nice to see Davies get his due for bringing the Doctor back to TV. 3, really enjoyed the gallery report, Sean and Mel. Doubt I'll get a chance to go, but I'm looking forward to hearing a full traveling crew review next year. Sorry to hear about Eric Roberts' quote-unquote unpleasantness. Thought this clip might cheer you up. And this one is?
It's a clip from The Dark Knights.
Yes.
I would hope.
I think I know which clip.
I would hope everyone had seen it.
I'm going to spoil it. It's one where he drops him off the side of the thing, breaks his leg.
Yeah.
It pains me
I'm
to
sorry,
watch
Phil.
that.
I haven't watched your YouTube your links yet.
It
so
pains me to watch that every time, too. Even when I watched the YouTube clip and I went, oh! Then he goes on to say, or not. Wow. And that actually makes me wince a bit. Oh, well, moving on. Number 4, a costume idea I might suggest, though it's not canon more like the Who-inspired Black Dalek with the white band around the neck. Rosary hanging from the manipulator arm. I give you the Dalexorcist. Who would love to hear the Dalek's voice shouting, "Concentrate! Concentrate!"
Slightly off tangent. Rick's T-shirt today, I think this would be great too, is a Dalek making coffee that says caffeinate.
Oh, that's right. I did see that.
It's got the green apron on it for Starbucks.
Right. Here's
that'd be great to see too.
A fun and disturbing thought is that we know that there's this church organization in New Who that has an army. We've seen Ironside Daleks now. Wouldn't it be cool to see, like, with the new paint job, like it looks like a cardinal robe that comes down on the front, and they've got crosses painted on them, and they're rolling into. Wow.
Yeah, because it's an Anglican church that's the army now. If the Catholics have done in with the Daleks, that'd be kind of cool.
Maybe yeah.
It's a big epic battle over Protestants and Catholics.
We
Long time coming.
Pray to Dalek Con. There's a whole. What's scarier than a Dalek? A religious one. Thanks, Phil. Needed that. Won't sleep tonight.
Number 5, hearing the awesome Simon Fisher-Becker do the question again was amazing, but it made me think of something. Matt Smith is the 11th Doctor. Or is he? Isn't the half-human Metacrisis Doctor the 11th carnation, and thus Smith is actually 12? Now I'm wondering if this has been asked before. Oh, well. No, I don't know.
I don't know.
He's like 11.1 or 11.2. Or no, I'm sorry.
Maybe 10.2.
10.2 is the Metacrisis Doctor.
10 2.0.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's really what he is. He's 10 2.0. So I think because it wasn't a full regenerative cycle, and part of his
he didn't regenerate.
Part of his makeup,
he grew out of a hand.
Yeah, and part of his makeup is from.
But he grew out of the hand.
But part of his makeup,
energy.
Part of his makeup is from the human Donna. So I no,
he's not full time.
I think it's like and he's not going to regenerate, so it's not in the same life process cycle. So I would say no. I think this is still the other.
Unless it's a multi-doctor episode, the Doctor is never next to himself, let alone in the same persona.
I will tease you with a little something. Trips. I did come up with a way. Actually, not the events of Minuet in Hell, which we're preparing to do next week, but Minuet in Hell got me thinking of a way to work in the Shaka Doctor. Not based on those events, but it made me think that kind of tangented into a new way
a new concept
to get the Shaka Doctor into the continuity and make it work.
Sweetness.
Anyway, and then he closes with Odd Duck Phil. P.S. Sean, if you continue mock Return of the Jedi, then I will witness the full power of this fully armed and operational battle station. Or you will witness, sorry. Then you will witness the firepower.
You got to say it right.
Then you will witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
There you go.
And then, of course, the clips from that. That's the last time I go with the lowest bid contract. Good stuff. Phil, we will mention that this is an audio podcast. So this would have been a lot better. This would have been a lot better in a video podcast, but maybe that makes an argument for the podcasters panel when they were talking about the future of video podcasting.
Oh, people really don't want to see all the things that we crazy people talk about.
Let me follow up.
Yes.
Okay. Phil also did write back with the comment question, and then that is a quick off-topic addition.
Oh, we don't do that here.
I loved Casino Royale and thought Quantum of Solace was okay. I think it's a lot better if you watch the two back-to-back. I concur, Phil.
I disagree, because then you've got a really, really long Bond movie where the first half is awesome, relatively, and the second half sucks.
No, you're so wrong.
Let's not get into that argument again.
Also, I have a theory that James Bond has never been rebooted. What if the 007 isn't the entire designation? What if when you're made a 00 agent, you are also assigned the name that goes with it? Suddenly, James Bond is unkillable and comes with a massive reputation. I also think it'd be great if they made a movie and revealed this, especially if the villain was a retired Bond. They did that. It's called Born Identity. So
I always kind of subscribed to that theory once Casino Royale came out.
I'd be afraid of.
Well, it's funny you bring this up, Phil, because you remember me saying over and over and over again last week they could have fixed it without rebooting it. Here's how you do it. This is exactly what you do. The movie opens in a hospital, and we pan over, and the beeping machines and the breathing apparatus and all this stuff, and in the bed is Sean Connery. Present day Sean. Old.
We've talked about this before.
All right, and he's laying there in bed.
It's the Bourne Identity.
He wakes up, and we discover that MI6 has appropriated the James Bond name, that he actually is James Bond. That's his real name. And he was a secret agent, and he was injured on submission, and he's been in a coma for 50 years. And they just took the name, the designation, the backstory, everything, and passed it on to the next guy.
I like the idea that it originated even before Connery.
Yeah, well, the bad guys know that James Bond can't possibly be going on for 50 years. Just like the Dread Pirate Roberts couldn't possibly be going on, for all of those of you that haven't seen it. But it's the name that's important. The name is the thing. Nobody's going to be afraid of Daniel Craig coming to bust down the door, but if James Bond is coming to bust down the door, it's a big deal. So then he wakes up and he finds all this out. And Connery becomes the bad guy. He's bent on revenge, going to kill all of the previous James Bonds, and you work all of them into it. You work in Roger. You bring back Roger Moore. You bring back Pierce Brosnan. You bring back everybody who has ever held the mantle of James Bond. And
George Lazenby.
He can kill all of them, and then the current guy gets to be the hero. That's how you fix that. Now, unfortunately,
how do you fix the fact that George Lazenby was Bond though between? Diamonds Are Forever.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. They don't have to necessarily. Just because the movies were released in that order doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be portrayed in that order. Excuse me. So it's interesting that you brought that up because yes, they totally could have done that. Now, obviously, Sean has said he's retired, but I would bet money if they pitched that to him, he'd have come back.
Here's a problem: is you have a continuity string that's been going on through the Bond movies because you have.
You're going to bring up Tracy.
Yeah, you've got Tracy Bond, who was married to on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yes.
Tracy dies.
Yes.
And then Roger Moore as James Bond is visiting
her grave,
Tracy's grave at the beginning of For Your Eyes Only.
Yes.
And Blofeld comes in and...
Sting operation. Why not? They don't explain. Other than the fact that he's there putting flowers on the grave and then gets into the car and the car turns out to be the helicopter and he gets up in the thing. Come on. Bond's not that dumb. They totally knew Blofeld was going to make a play for him. So they sent the guy because he takes on not just the name, but the entire persona. Oh, you were married once? Guess what? You were married once. It comes with the title. You got to do all of that.
All right. So then later, when James is at Felix Leiter's wedding in The Living Daylight, License to Kill.
Yes.
And he's having difficulty. He's being Mr. Grumpy Bear because he's recounting his loss, and Felix says to his fiancée, when she says, well, what's wrong with him? Because he's being very moody and emo. And he says, well, he was married once, and, he lost her. He recounts the fact that his wife was killed.
Because that's the official cover story. Felix would only get that from that.
That wipes a lot of the emotion and emotional heaviness of the Bond series completely wipes it away.
That is the problem.
Totally,
Bond is a cardboard cutout character.
Bond is an edgier persona each time because of the things that he's dealt with in his past. And if he's just dealing with a basically pretending to be another guy and just getting edgier that way, then the character doesn't work.
It fixes it without a reboot. It fixes it and it brings back. You want to talk fan service? You would not have squeed all over yourself because of that movie. You'd have
if
been
it hadn't already been done in the Bourne
But it wasn't already done in Bourne Identity. No, they had plenty of time after Casino Royale came out and screwed it up.
No, because Bourne came out before Casino.
Not the last one.
Not the last one, but it's still the same concept.
No, it isn't.
And they had already planted the seed.
He had never got his memory back.
But they had.
That's not the same.
Planted
it's not
the
same at
all.
No.
Absolutely.
And besides, it was already done in Goldeneye, if you're going to be particular about it, because that was a previous.
It was a previous 00.
I mean, how many 00s have died?
00, yeah. I mean, you do pick up the number, but 006 was presumed to be dead, and then he returns.
And wasn't. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so interesting thought there, Phil.
Yeah. And
he goes on to say...
And then he goes on to say, of course, this is starting to sound like less like Bond and more like Time Lord regenerations. Hey, cool. I brought it back on topic. He signs it, Odd Duck Phil, Agent 00, star. Or asterisk, whatever you want to say. Thank you,
Phil. Bond
Phil.
was a Time Lord?
Somebody commented
there were
on
a
that
lot of those, especially when Timothy Dalton played Rassilon. They said, aha, see, James Bond is a Time Lord.
Well, this explains a lot.
Our next bit of feedback
comes from Dr. Phil. He sent in some audio feedback, so let's take a listen.
Hey, everyone at Traveling the Vortex. Hey, it's Dr. Phil just calling in. Just listening to the very squid-like, tentacled discussion from your last episode, which is very enjoyable. I don't mean to tease. But nonetheless, I just wanted to call in with one quick comment. It's not a correction. It's just something that wanted you guys to think about, is that if you go back and watch the Donna Noble series 4 finale, 2-parter, the first part, The Stolen Earth, Sarah Jane, activates Mr. Smith and comments about the fanfare. So that kind of backs up Glenn and Sean's comment that the actual music is every time that Mr. Smith, and it's not the incidental music, which is kind of funny. And she comments like, "What's all this with all the pomp?" I forget what the exact quote is, but I'm sure you can find it very easily. Great, enjoyable discussion. I had trouble getting into the Sarah Jane Adventures when I first had to go, and I haven't in a while because I'm waiting for my daughter to get old enough to start her on it, because I'll buy it eventually. I'm a completist. But I was kind of turned off by Enemy of the Bane, and I'm one of those people. I did not dig the Sonic lipstick, and after your discussion, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could probably deal with that a bit better now. Really enjoying all the discussion about the shout-outs to the past, and Glenn had brought up the Sarah Jane Adventures, not the Sarah Jane Adventures, the Sarah Jane Smith audios from Big Finish, which kind of is an alternate period, probably set sometime before School Reunion, of course, where they did 2 series of audios. I don't want to give anything away, but Tim Chadbon, who'd played Duggan in City of Death, in the second series plays Harry Sullivan's brother. Also, there's a very small mention to K9 in that series, so don't worry, it's not K9 and Company all over again, for better or for worse. But I highly recommend them because they're really good and they're very grown up. And Glenn was right on. It's kind of a mystery as to what's going on. There's a big series arc for the first series, which connects back to one of Sarah Jane's stories, but I won't say which one because it's very interesting which one. And then the second series also connects back to a different Sarah Jane Smith story from the classic series that happens in a very, very interesting way. And in fact, I think I did that one on my show before Christmas. That might give away which story that series to. But don't listen to that comment. But anyway, keep up the great work, gentlemen. It's always a great listen. And as usual, I'm in the car, so there's there's another achievement, I guess. Just calling in and thank you guys for keeping me company on a long drive across Indiana. So I'm heading from Fort Wayne back to Chicago. So anyway, take care. Great listen. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dr. Phil. I'm a little disappointed that K9's not in it. I don't know if I want to listen to it now.
At least there's a mention.
Yeah, there's a mention, but it's not the same.
Going back to the fanfare.
Fanfare. Yes.
I totally didn't remember this.
I totally did remember it, but I couldn't remember what she said. But that's also right in that I was too busy. Yay! And so anybody could have said something cool, and it would have mattered to me.
She says, I wish you'd stop getting that fanfare. Just tell me what happened.
There we go.
So that seems to imply it's a Mr. Smith created thing.
So.
I want to know why Mr. Smith is hidden away in the wall.
In case anybody comes up in that attic room.
Yeah, but really?
Well, she's got all that equipment
she's got alien artifacts. She's got Cybermen and Jaggareth starship designs hanging on the walls. Unit passes. Mr. Smith is the least of her worries. He could be out all the time, and she could say, Mr. Smith, I need you to hide. And he could close up, and somebody could come upstairs, and then it wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, but the fanfare going backwards wouldn't work.
That's something I actually forgot to talk about when we did that. Is I wanted to mention my one complaint with Sarah Jane Adventures is the theme. Even though it's a Murray Gold,
sounds very much like Doctor
I
Who.
like the fact that it has Who elements.
I don't
to the
think
music.
honestly, I don't think it has enough Who elements.
Oh,
when the Who
goes
theme
to
comes
it goes,
in.
woo, and then has that Who sound, and
that's
then
just the scream. That doesn't really. The rest of it just kind of lays there and doesn't do much. Unlike Murray Gold's Torchwood theme, which is very edgy and cool,
But it's its own
sorely
identity
missed in
too.
Miracle
This one
Day.
almost sounds like a meld between the Doctor's theme.
It's
and the
not
Doctor Who
enough. It's
theme.
not enough of a Doctor Who theme. It's not enough of a Sarah Jane theme. I don't know. But that was the one comment I had that I wanted to throw out there. Maybe Dr. Phil has
my theory
more thoughts on that.
on Mr. Smith. When he's closed, that's his power saver mode.
He's in hibernate.
Yes.
And then thank you, Phil, for chiming in, qualifying about what I was, what limited knowledge I had about Sarah Jane Smith audios, that they were Earth based and mysteries and whatnot. But I do like hearing the fact that they tie back to a Sarah Jane story
and that
in the series.
Harry
so.
Sullivan's brother's in it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And
That's
do
very,
you
very
know
cool.
which?
I don't know which
I'm
one.
not going to say anything
Oh, Sean
because
knows.
it could
Sean
spoil
knows.
it, but I'll give you a hint. Scorby! No, I can't back that up.
That's just wishful thinking.
I just needed an excuse to say it.
Fun stuff. But yes, thank you so much, and thanks for clearing some of that up for us, and we certainly appreciate it.
Up
I'm
next,
looking so forward to next week and doing more Big Finish because
Yeah, I am
start
too.
that ball roll. I felt like we gave it just a little, just a
nudge.
little nudge, and it didn't really move off the hill yet.
I am so enjoying the Eighth Doctor, but we'll get there. I'm sorry.
yeah. Moving right along, Andrew.
Do chunka chunk? No, I don't think that's right.
It was close.
Andrew writes in and says,
I was
"Hello.
unprepared for moving right along. I
I've been listening to your entertaining podcast for the last week after finding it through the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance, and I have a couple comments I would like to make.
Hello, Andrew.
Please ignore them if you've already covered this in episodes I have not yet listened to.
Okay.
First of all, would it be possible for you to put in your show notes the time points in which each section starts? It would be helpful when going back just to listen to a particular episode review."
That's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. That's not what you were thinking of. But that's,
No, it's not at all
yeah.
what I was thinking of, but it does kind of tie in.
It's not a
with
bad
that.
idea.
I started listening to Podshock, and they have an enhanced version that I kind of
They
like.
do, yeah. And my
I'm not
understanding
skipping
is
forward at all,
my
so it
understanding
doesn't
is
do
you
any
can
good.
do that in GarageBand, which we are now using. I just haven't explored the extents of which we could be utilizing GarageBand. So, Andrew, I'll certainly look into that. It's going to make things a little more time consuming, and I think right now, until I find a way to streamline that process, we try to get this out as soon as possible. So what that means is I get up on Monday morning. We record these on Sunday. Yeah. Well, I do some editing in the cast if necessary.
No.
Yeah. And but what it does is to get this out on the feeds as soon as possible. We record this late on Sunday night. We all go home and sleep. Well, they stay here because they live here. But I go home, we sleep. The next morning, I get up, take my daughter to school. I have my son in the morning with me. I edit the podcast in the morning before I go to work. So, and some days, most of our listeners can attest, the feed doesn't hit until Tuesday because there might be a hiccup or something on Monday morning. So, if I can figure out a way to streamline that process, I certainly will make an attempt to that endeavor. But I can't promise anything soon. But that is a terrific idea. I like the idea.
Why would you want a marker that allowed you to skip past all our witty banter and tangents?
That's true.
It wouldn't do you any
We
good.
want you to listen to all of us now.
It wouldn't do you any good. This is where we start talking about the show. Or is it? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
We'll find ways to streamline the process and get him home earlier so that maybe he can actually have some more time on the back
Less
end.
witty banter.
Yeah, if we had less banner, it'd be a lot
Less
easier.
tangents, at least. We can keep the witty banter. Less tangents.
I'd rather keep the tangents. Witty is hard.
Secondly, about Stephen Moffat's writing process. Contrary to what some of your correspondents have claimed, he has said in interviews he did not have River Song's story all mapped out from the time of writing Silence in the Library. And he provides us a link with that.
That
I
link
meant to
will be in
go
the show
read that,
notes.
and I fell down.
I did read it, and I remember him. I remember that actually coming across that one day, and I can't believe I didn't remember that when we were talking about the River Song story, because I think I even said, "Oh yeah, certainly he's had this mapped out from the beginning." But I do remember that article that he's referring to.
He may not have had it. I didn't read the article. He may not have had it mapped out, but he had an idea, surely.
Maybe an outline, but even the comments that he makes in this, it was kind of the story invented itself as it went along. So,
having now gone back and watched the Knight and the Doctor minisodes, a lot of that feels very.
Well, I think the Knight and the Doctor are. I think I've always assumed those particularly did feel like I need to go back and put in some backstory. But even the route that he was going to take, because when he wrote Silence in the Library and Forged to the Dead, he had no. I don't think he at that time. Well, certain at that time he didn't. He wasn't certain that he was going to be taking the helm and would have more input into the series, and that's kind of the impression I get from this interview as well. So. Again, even reading that, I think he had he in the back of his mind he had an idea, but it wasn't as mapped out as I think we've made it to sound. Of
course, we all know Stephen Moffat lies.
That's true.
he could be being humble in the interview.
That's true.
Part of me, if he didn't have it if he says he didn't have it mapped out, part of me is disappointed, and part of me thinks that's an even better and more brilliant of a writer, that he says, okay, I've got this character, what can I do with it, and comes up with this.
I think a lot of writers do that. I don't think a lot of people are able to map out. I think what they do is they write a character, they grow to love it, and then they expound on that. And I think that's what happens with a lot of writers is they learn about the character as they're introducing the character to us.
Well, even with a series like Babylon 5, for example, which Michael J. Straczynski, if I'm saying that right, he had planned out pretty specifically. It's going to be a 5-year arc. We're going to do 5 years of this show, and that's it. That's it. We're done. And so he had certain events that were going to take place at certain time frames, and knew that he was going to change actors, and that this was going to happen, and that this person was coming in, etc. But I don't think having the erector set framework of a story like that is necessarily the same as then going in and painting in the broad strokes and kind of getting some of the details out. And seeing which way the story twists and turns within that framework is certainly different.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, I think it can go both ways, but yeah, I kind of agree with you. There's a part of me that just has got Moffat on such a high pedestal that he couldn't possibly have not had this thought out in advance. And there's another part of me that thinks it's in a way it's kind of cooler that maybe he didn't and just flew by the seat of his pants and went along, because it gives me hope.
Oh, he goes on to say, I thought you'd be interested to know this, as you have an award-winning scriptwriter on your team who will probably enjoy better understanding Moffat's process. Sorry for the length. Andrew, you're short this week.
Oh, yeah, Andrew. No, don't worry about that.
Please feel free not to read this in the feedback section if you consider it's too long. Obviously, we didn't. Best wishes. P.S. Shame about Philip Maddock, another great Doctor Who actor who has left us. That happened so early on, I forgot.
Yeah, we completely, because it was right on the heels of us putting the
episode out.
Episode on the feeds. In fact, that happened the day I was putting the episode out. Well, and I thought, wow, this was another postmortem.
I'm going to blank now. The other guy who had passed last week.
Yes.
That we mentioned.
He was in Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah.
His name escapes me now.
And then Philip Maddock. And I'll be honest, initially, everybody was going on and on and on about it, and I didn't necessarily equate that it wasn't the same guy.
Right,
I kind of thought, why are you guys... I mean, yeah, he was a great... And then I realized who this guy was, and was like, oh!
Yeah.
Oh! Because, I mean, he was not Morbius, he was... Solomon.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Brain of Morbius.
Yes.
Along with others. And huge Doctor Who loss when I figured that out finally.
Right. Yeah, no, I thought the same thing, and we were remiss for not mentioning him in our news notes this week. It came so soon, and we totally forgot about it.
Thank you for
bringing that to the table,
calling us out on it.
Thank you so much,
and thanks for your email, Andrew, because it's always nice to hear from new people. That's apparently a new.
Please continue to write in,
and new writer, and yay for finding us on the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance,
which we should plug them.
We do. We don't plug them very often.
We don't, and we're proud members of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance. You can find that at DoctorWhoPodcastAlliance.org. It basically what they've done is it takes nothing to join if you're a Doctor Who podcast, by the way. You just send them a link to your site and what you're about. And what it does is the site's pretty simple. It aggregates our podcast, adds it to the plethora of Doctor Who podcasts that are out there. Hadn't used it in a few weeks. So, we're all up there. And the cool thing about, and Sean will attest, having gone to the podcasters panel, Doctor Who podcasters are a pretty close-knit bunch. None of us are competing with each other, and we're all disseminating information about Doctor Who. We're all talking about something that we all love.
And very frequently there's what's called podcests.
Yes, that's absolutely right, because a lot of times there'll be podcasters that are on other podcasts. We haven't had any on our show, with the exception of Martin Huey, who wrote in, sent us feedback.
Dr. Phil, obviously.
And then, that's
time, space,
I was
music.
getting there,
Okay.
and then Dr. Phil is on our show quite frequently as well. So, but we haven't had any other than the two that we've had so far. But we plan to change that, because everybody helps each other out, and the community is such a wonderful community to be a part of, and we're proud to be part of that group.
Yes, absolutely.
And of our fellow podcasters. So, and be sure to go to that site, check out some other podcasts. If you like our podcast, there might be some out there that are also to your taste as well.
I've started dipping my toe in them, and I'm enjoying them.
Good.
Our next bit of feedback comes from Alex, a.k.a. Freaky Alex.
Alex writes, "Hey guys, Alex here, writing in to say that I really enjoyed episode 62. It wasn't really a review of the Sarah Jane Adventures. It was more an overview of the James Bond films, with the occasional Sarah Jane tangent. Just kidding.
Sorry about that.
I thought we were fairly tame on the Bond films for what we could have done.
Well, that's probably true. But we started the silly review and tangented because of Samantha Bond.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, we did.
We had started Invasion of the Bane, and totally
we
went 15 minutes talking about James Bond.
If you guys haven't figured this out by now, we're very much ADHLAS.
Yes.
Which is attention deficit. Hey, look, a squirrel. And so anytime you dangle something shiny in front of us, we're going to chase after
I'm so
it.
sorry. I felt so bad about that after we were done. I thought, wow, we just really launched into probably one of our worst tangents ever.
I'm sorry, you guys launched into. I don't know much about Bond. I sat there quiet.
Yeah,
Keith sat here, looked a lot like a spectator at a tennis match with the back and forth. And, just kidding. I agreed with pretty much everything you guys had to say about Bond. Especially with the fact that whatever happened to Sarah Jane is far and away the best story in the series. Possibly the best Sarah Jane adventure story, period.
Ooh.
I don't know yet. I haven't got very far into the rest of them.
Yeah, I haven't seen the rest.
I also look fondly on the warriors of Kudlak. That's really tough to say, though.
It is.
Why do alien races always have K's, V's, X's, and Z's in their names?
Because their language is built around it.
I know. It's weird, isn't it? Kudlak and the Lost Boy, specifically for the villains. Kudlak is a very interesting character, which means that you sympathize for him when he realizes he's been tricked by his ship's computer. Mr. Smith, even more so, is a fantastic villain because you feel genuinely betrayed when he turns on Clyde. I do agree it's a little cheap of them to just reset Mr. Smith at the story's end, and I think it cheapens his character throughout the first series as well, knowing that he's going to turn on them. You can't quite enjoy his friendly banter with the gang in the same way. I'm looking forward to your Cybermen archive this week. I've never seen Attack of the Cybermen, so I can't comment on it, but I have seen Silver Nemesis. Before you say anything bad about this story, and we're looking at you, Glenn. He didn't write that, but I'm looking at you, Glenn. I'd just like to say I personally will always love it because it's the first Seventh Doctor story I ever watched, and it made me fall in love with McCoy's portrayal of the character. It was also my introduction to Ace, one of the coolest companions of all time. Seven and Ace are a brilliant TARDIS team, so while the rest of the story may have a few rough edges, cough, Lady Pinafore, cough, this one will always have something of a special place in my heart. Waiting for your Cybermen archive got me thinking about the next Cybermen in general, or about the Cybermen in general, and I've actually written a blog post about their appearances in the new series. Some of it ties back to the review of The Next Doctor that you did quite recently. I talk a bit about why the Cybermen aren't quite the iconic enemies they used to be. And if you want to read it, I'll put a link at the bottom of the email. And of course, we would be happy to. One last thing before I go. I might be imagining this, but I think you mentioned Dirk Gently. a couple of episodes ago. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out they've created a TV adaptation of the book. It's airing on BBC 4.
Ooh.
I've never read the original books. They're on my to-read list, but the show looks great. I just thought you'd like to know if you haven't already heard about it. Can't wait for next week's episode, Alex. And we will get his blog post, which is www.notentirelyincoherent.blogspot.com. And then there's additional HTML link information there, but we'll make sure to put that in our show notes as well. So you have absolutely. A lot of editing to do this week with all this typing you're going to have to do.
He's got a lot of typing to do.
I do have a lot of typing.
I do think we did mention Dirk Gently.
I don't remember how it came up, but I
want to say
when
we were talking about Douglas Adams in some way or another. We did.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I did not know that.
I know they did a pilot.
I'm excited about that as well.
And I think what we talked about a little bit was that it was either coming on soon or they were beginning to film it. It must have been that they were coming on soon. It was coming on soon on BBC.
I don't know. I don't remember knowing that there was a show. But as you guys proved to me earlier tonight, I forget things regularly. So things that I think I know, I don't. Things that I don't think I know, I do. But I don't remember. So it's all good. I'm Sean. Have we started the show yet? Am I late?
Our next bit of feedback comes from Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy. And thank you, Alex, for writing it.
Yes, thank you. Her subject line is, "Look at the green marshmallow face." Dear Vortex boys, hey, you guys might want to check your feeds. I think somebody accidentally started an episode of Traveling the Bond Universe on iTunes last week.
Again, I am so sorry.
Just thought I'd let you know so you can handle it. And then she puts a smiley face.
I'm sorry. I feel so bad.
She continues to say...
We probably should just do a separate movie-themed podcast just to get it out of our system. Like, we'll get together an hour earlier and we'll record that. Yeah, and we'll get it out of our system, and then we can record the Traveling the Vortex and get the Doctor Who stuff going. No? I don't know.
She says, I missed your Sarah Jane Adventures discussion last week, so I'll be satisfied with saying I agreed with everything you said. The first series is a fantastic introduction to Sarah Jane and the Doctor Who universe for kids, and it's something that I'm looking forward to sharing with my niece when she's old enough to appreciate it. And hopefully it will lead her to wanting to watch Doctor Who. Also, I have to thank you for referring to Maria's mom almost exclusively as Maria's mom. Out of all the Doctor Who universe, out of all the characters in the Doctor Who universe that would share my name, Chrissy Jackson is definitely not the one I would have chosen. She even misspells it. She does get a little better later. A little. But she still is annoying. Anyway, hooray for Sarah Jane Adventures. Okay. Oh, Sean's story about watching the Selena episodes on the plane had me laughing for about 10 straight minutes after I heard it. I think I was even laughing about it later at work and got some weird looks from people, but it was worth it. Here's a question for you to ponder, though, more or less. Sarah Jane Adventures uses the multiple episode format for all its stories, much like Classic Who did. Yes, the Sarah Jane stories are only 2 25-minute episodes, which means each full story is about as long as a typical episode of New Who. But it bears thinking about. Do you think that format would ever be brought back to New Who, or would it just be something to do with Sarah Jane Adventures? I think it would be an interesting experiment to try. I don't know if it would be a success, but I also don't know if it would be a failure. What do you all think?
I don't think it would work because I think the people that are drawn to Doctor Who nowadays, especially new viewers that aren't familiar with the classic series so much, are used to episodic format where everything is built and wrapped up. I mean, we do or not episodic, serial format. No, episodic.
It's episodic.
Yeah.
Hour-long episodic.
Yeah. And I mean, with the exception of the two-parters, which are sort of the cliffhanger-ish ones from week to week, we don't get a lot of those. I think people are used to the way that TV is structured. I think children's television works differently, and that's why Doctor Who worked differently back in the day. And in fact, I don't recall. I have no knowledge as to how these ran originally for the first and second series, but I know for like the third and for sure the fourth series, what they did is they ran them on Thursday and then Friday. So you didn't wait an entire week to see the next episode. You waited another day. I think that works for children's television, and I also think that I have an 8-year-old child myself. Her attention span is about 30 seconds. Well, on some things it is about 30 minutes long.
Squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because, I mean, kids can't jam an hour worth of information into their brain very often. All of the shows that she watches are about 21 minutes in total time. And so I think that that's where Sarah Jane works for it. Doctor Who, on the other hand, when I sit down and watch an episode with her, I think she enjoys them and she gets into them and she loves them. But you can tell about 30 minutes in, she starts to get a little spacey and fidgety and move around. And my 3-year-old's even worse. If we sit down and watch a movie, he could tell you top to bottom what happened in that first 30, 40 minutes of a movie. Beyond that, he's up on mom's lap or up on dad's lap or crawling around or playing with toys. So the older you get, the better you can deal with it. But I just don't think that would work because Doctor Who's no longer a children's show. It's a family show now.
I only did that once. Climbed in your lap once and still hear about it.
And really, how many classic Who had...
It wasn't so bad until you just laid your head down and fell asleep.
How many classic Who episodes have we watched that had a felt forced cliffhanger?
Yeah, we have those.
I wouldn't want to see that in this new series. They might be able to write it better
sometimes. And Sarah Jane works because it's 2 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of time, or stories, no episodes. And so with Doctor Who, I mean, how many times have we watched Doctor Who and said, well, that could have been 2 episodes and been a lot quicker and
that's
concise.
True.
So, I mean, they were filling a void back then. They were filling a schedule that had to be, so many weeks long, and so it worked for them to stretch some of those stories out, make them longer. But
although part of me,
I don't think we could go back.
If it would double the length of, even if it was a half-hour episode once a week, if we'd get 24 weeks of Doctor Who. Part of me is all for that.
Let me ask you this: would you guys find yourself watching from week to week if it was 30 minutes or 21 minutes? Would you wait and bank them up and then watch them all together? Because
I would probably not be able to wait. Watch the first one.
Sean, I know the answer
and
to.
directly before rewatch the first one.
Sean has issues watching week to week now. Sean wants more.
He wants to mainline an entire season.
Yes. And
I have been berated for causing him now to have to watch Doctor Who on a week-to-week basis, as opposed to saving them up.
Unhappy about that too, because I hate waiting.
So that's just my 2 cents. I don't know that it would work.
I think it would be. I don't know. For me personally, I don't wish there to ever go back to that particular format of let's do 4 half-hour features and call it a story arc. I don't think there's a need for it. I think everybody's adapted and well used. Plus, it certainly makes selling it overseas a much more attractive option for the BBC and BBC America and BBC Worldwide and whoever else has got it. But having said that, if Moffat wanted to throw a bone in a little bit of fan service way for the 50th anniversary and do like a Children of Earth story arc where we got 5 episodes in a row that were pared down a little bit, but aired on consecutive nights and were all part of the same thing. I think that would actually be kind of cool.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that isn't.
And I think something like that would succeed. I think if it was done just... Hi, K9. If it was done just as part of the regular...
You're a week late, K9.
Doctor Who's on, and it's going to be on for 30 minutes, and then it'll be off, and you have to wait. I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'd still watch it. I'm not going to...
people still would, but
I'm not going to not watch the show.
I think if it were going to stick to that format, it needed to come back in that format.
Yeah. No,
I don't think going
think
back
so
to it would work very well.
I almost think it's weird when we get into some of the Colin Baker years and it's only the 2 episodes that run about 40 minutes long. It feels strange to me because it's classic Who and it's not supposed to run that way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I keep waiting. It was like, You're throwing my chi off because there should have been a cliffhanger in here somewhere, and we're not to it yet. It's still going on. What is
Where's
the deal?
my vortex?
Yeah. And
Where's my theme?
And then all of a sudden there is a cliffhanger, and it shows up, and it's like, oh, yeah, there's only 2 in this one. Okay, right.
Well, Chrissy went on to write about the Big Finish episodes we will be discussing next week. She's a week ahead of us. So we're going to save her thoughts until next week on those. But she ends it with, that's it for me, Chrissy. Not the annoying one, I hope. Not at all, Chrissy.
Not at all.
And that's all the feedback we had.
Well, I guess that means we're going to review the 2 stories that we have for this week.
Yes, for our Cybermen Archive 2.
Yep. I had to think about it for a minute there. Yeah, we have only done one. Seems like we've done more than one, but we did 3 Daleks, I guess, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you ask Sean, we did 1 Dalek and 2 Davros. But
No, we did 2 Dalek and 1 Davros.
Well, it might be throwing you off because we talked quite a bit of Cybermen in closing time.
we did 1 Dalek and 2 Davros. Because Davros came along in the very first part of that that second Dalek.
Right. Yeah.
Yay, I get to prove Sean wrong again. I live for that. Do you know that?
Once is not an again.
I'm sure I'll come up with another time that I did.
You go ahead and live for that moment. I've already moved on to plan my revenge for that one.
Attack of the Cybermen. The TARDIS is lured to Earth. 1985. By an alien distress signal. Investigating, the Doctor and Perry stumble upon an attempted bank robbery staged through the London sewers by a familiar foe. Ex-Dalek agent Lytton? Lytton.
Is it Lighton or Lytton?
Lytton.
Lytton.
Isn't it Lytton?
I thought it was Lytton.
That guy.
But who is he working for this time? Soon they discover there is something far nastier lurking in the sewers. Cybermen.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, wait.
Nope.
Sorry.
Why do the Silver Giants need a time machine? What is their devastating plan of attack? And what does it have to do with a catastrophic event that happened long ago in the Doctor's past?
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think Glenn liked this one.
I did like this one.
I did too.
Me too.
Let me preface that by saying the memory cheats. When I was a kid, I watched Tom Baker his entire run, and I absolutely loved him. And then I did the same thing that Sean did to a slightly lower degree. Of when Peter Davison came along, I went, what happened to my Doctor? But I enjoyed Peter Davison. I enjoyed the Fifth Doctor, and I watched the Fifth Doctor, and I went all the way through that run. Something happened that I think happened to a lot of Doctor Who fans back in the day. When Colin Baker came along, first of all, it was such a different take on the Doctor that I wasn't quite sure, but it was Doctor Who, so I was going to stick with it. However, life gets in the way, and by that time I was in high school, and girls were becoming attractive, and I had so many other things going on that I did kind of fall off Doctor Who for a while. So I think that was the first time that I had seen Attack of the Cybermen, and I was a bit soured on it because it wasn't my Doctor for the second time again. And even though his last name was Baker, it still wasn't working for me, and other things were getting in the way. And so I didn't remember this one that well, but I remembered not being a huge fan of it. I borrowed this from Sean many years later
on VHS.
And watched it again, and was in
I own this one?
You did. And I was in a better mindset, and I appreciated what it was for what it was, and hadn't got into the Colin Baker audios yet to appreciate the Sixth Doctor in the way that I do now. So I didn't like that as well then. So both of those 2 times that I've seen it soured my opinion of it, going in and watching it now a third time, going, oh, okay, I got to watch this thing again. However, having watched this thing again now, enjoying the Sixth Doctor as I do now because of the audios, thank you, Big Finish, and for being more attentive to the Cybermen storyline that's going on through this, and the wibbly wobbly, and the fan service that this does to Doctor Who fans for all of its mentions, not just the Cyberman lore, but all of Doctor Who's past references in this. I thoroughly enjoyed watching this time.
I went out and picked this up on DVD because we didn't have it.
You didn't go out. The mailman brought it.
Oh, that's true. I did order it from Amazon. I am
through the Amazon.com store.
Of
you can
Traveling
find
the
that link
Vortex.
on travelingthevortex.com.
Yes.
Hopefully soon there will be a bigger button, so it won't be so hard to find. But right now it's in the right rail. It says Amazon store. Click on that. Buy DVDs from us. We want to go to Gallifrey as a group next year.
That's our goal. So
Is
buy
that good for a plug, Sean?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
of DVDs.
If you enjoy programs like Traveling the Vortex, be sure to donate generously.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned knowing it was Colin Baker, but
And we haven't watched a lot of Baker.
no,
Colin
we
Baker.
haven't. And what I've seen,
I think this is only
Number
4.
3? Oh, 4. Was this 4? So we saw Two
We
Doctors.
saw Two Doctors,
Doctors,
Vengeance on
Veros.
Veros, Attack of the Cybermen.
Is there another one? Because I couldn't think of another.
was Vengeance the one with
that we
Syl?
watched. Vengeance on Varro was the one with
Revelation of the Daleks.
Revelation.
Oh, we did watch Revelation. Okay, I forgot about that one.
So
And-
4.
I know I'm Cyberman biased.
And you haven't heard any.
I haven't heard any.
Sixth Doctor audios yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoyed his portrayal of the Doctor in this. The fact that him and Perry are on rocky footing to begin with, I think I thought was very interesting.
And I felt bad going into this because they're making comments directly from his first story,
Yeah.
which is The Twin Dilemma, which I'm hoping that I enjoy this one better the second time when we get to it, but that's a whole nother podcast. They're making comments about their rocky relationship and how his this regeneration not being so smooth,
Yeah.
and her still being concerned about him based on the events of the past episode.
Which
I felt a little bad that you weren't familiar enough with that.
you guys had explained that to me
We certainly did.
multiple times, so it's not an uncommon idea to me that I know he had a rocky start. I know he tried to strangle Perry.
Yes.
So I knew that going into this, and it wasn't until I looked and checked I didn't realize this was the second Colin Baker story. But I am so glad that I did purchase this. This is one I would go back and rewatch. There are a lot of great elements to it, and you mentioned the fan service, and I think there's even more fan service than just on the Cyberman aspect of explanation of history, because the first Cyberman story is lost. We don't without
planet. Yeah, you're right.
without-
They do fill in a lot of the holes. That's a
they
good point.
fill in those holes that most people wouldn't know. Unless you did your hardcore Wikipedia reading like I did, you wouldn't understand a lot of the Cybermen, and this explains so much of it.
Yeah.
And then, even more so, ties into Moonbase, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Wait, was it Moonbase? No, it tied into Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yes, Tomb, yes.
But it still referenced Moonbase.
It did. We referenced
too.
Moonbase.
So
It references 10th Planet, as you
explained
pointed out.
10th Planet and Moonbase.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. And how much of that do you think is necessary? Because we hadn't seen. Let's see. We had Earthshock, which was a Cyberman episode in the Fifth Doctor's era. Not much mention of any of the past.
It wasn't dealing with the history.
Yeah, there was
of the
no.
Cybermen.
So we're pretty removed from that history there. We have. Is it Revenge of the Cybermen? Is the Tom Baker
Yes.
one, which we have some mention of Cyberman lore, but not a lot. And we actually are reinventing the Cybermen at that point, because that's when we find out about the gold dust. Or the gold, the gold allergy, quote unquote. That's air quotes that I'm showing here if you can't see them. I think they felt a need coming along so far without really letting the at this time the younger viewers that weren't around in the 1960s and 70s, letting them in on some of the background of Doctor Who. Now, some people have said that this falls down because there's so much fan service that a lot of people that were new to Who at the time couldn't follow along.
Maybe
But
because I'm not as new to Who.
But I really
didn't think
felt like
that.
they were filling it in nicely and giving the backstory as they went along.
They
did a fine
explained
job.
pretty much in all their references that from what I've read on Wikipedia and other sites, they succinctly told the story of the 10th planet and Moonbase enough that you almost don't
You
need
get
to go.
what's going
yeah,
on.
you get what's going on. You don't. Since we don't have it, I mean, but if there was, you wouldn't absolutely have to go back and watch those. It would help, but you still understand.
Right.
And you have that history of the Cybermen.
What we're skipping over Sean
that's
here.
what
but
I love about this.
since we're talking about Cyberman lore, I think another thing, the reason that I appreciated this story so much this time, is that in recent years I've gone back now and I've watched 10th Planet because there is a reconstruction version out there that you can get a hold of, and the only one that's reconstructed. Excuse me. The only thing that's reconstructed of this one, the only one missing is the final episode of the 10th Planet. So I have recently, within the last year or two, have gone back and watched 10th Planet. Another thing that lent to my appreciation of this is I have since listened to Spare Parts, which is the Big Finish audio.
I need to go
that
listen to
even
that
goes
still.
back into more depth of the genesis of the Cybermen, for lack of a better word. And so that lent to my appreciation of this because after seeing those, I feel like I'm a little more complete in the backstory.
Yeah.
And so this really embellishes that a lot, and I appreciate it. And that's what I looked at from this. There are things in this that are still I have issue with, just as far as you still have a problem with the Sixth Doctor's coat. You still have but those little things are pushed aside now because I'm focusing on the better parts of this story, and I think that's why I appreciate it more because I had more invested in the Cybermen backstory now, and so this was just like really expounding on that, and that's what I loved about this.
And it's a great, as great as Revenge of the Cybermen is. As entertaining as Earthshock is, they had gotten so far away from what the Cybermen were about. Mm-hmm. This is a nice return to that.
I agree. Sean, we've been doing a lot of the talking.
Despite having owned this on VHS, this was my first viewing. Of
I think we should assume any VHS he owned, he didn't watch.
You know what I'm learning now? I probably could have borrowed those VHSs and never returned them. And I'd have had an entire huge collection of Doctor Who now.
I didn't have that big of a collection. You keep bringing these. I think you're making it up.
You had at least. I'm visualizing upstairs in your townhouse when I was borrowing these. I'm envisioning one shelf on the bottom of your DVD shelves. It was entirely this length. It was full of
I probably had 20 or maybe
VHS
30.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think it was probably 25.
It was probably closer
maybe
to 20,
upwards of 30. VHS Doctor Who stories that I borrowed over the course of 2 months. I mean, I was eating these things up because he had a lot of stuff I'd never seen because I'd seen a lot of this stuff as a kid. He had stuff that I had seen, which was enjoyable to watch again, but I was eating this up because he introduced me to the Seventh Doctor. I'd never seen any Seventh Doctor. He introduced me to the Sixth Doctor. He didn't introduce me to the Sixth Doctor. I had seen a few episodes of the Sixth Doctor before I fell off, but I was able to catch back up with the Sixth Doctor as I borrowed from you. I'd seen very little First Doctor.
It comes
from recounting stuff that I've talked about on this podcast many times. I know,
but it's been a long time.
It comes from having a job and still living at home, and I would get my pay. I worked at Suncoast, which was a sell-through video store.
Yeah, because you were just barely married when I was borrowing this
and so I was living at home at the time when I was accumulating these, and I would get my paycheck, and I would walk down the mall and cash my check at the bank and go back to the store, and I'd pick up $60 worth of stuff and put the rest of it into my checking account. So it was frequently Doctor Who, and that was now until Laserdisc came along. Once I bought my Laserdisc player, the Doctor Who purchases kind of went by the wayside.
Sure.
Yeah, I had one of those. Still do.
And he still has some discs.
I do still have it. Every now and then I fire it up just to listen to it. Yeah, that's cool.
Which, if you don't know what Laserdisc, it just looks like oversized DVD.
It's a record-sized CD.
It's a record-sized DVD.
Well, a lot of people don't know what a record is, but...
That makes me sad. Even I know what a record is.
There are some people out there that haven't watched...
An LP record, by the way, not a 45.
Princess Bride. So.
Wow.
I liked
almost
this one
excusable.
a lot. I kind of was with Keith because you never know with the Colin Baker stories, is it a hit or a miss?
Where are they going to fall?
You never know
Yeah.
where it's going to fall in the thing. I have come to like Colin Baker so much more listening to Big Finish. I know that people have said that. We've said it. It's one of
It
those
sounds
things
cliche
that,
now,
it does.
but it's so true.
It sounds so cliche.
I've come to like Colin Baker more through this story, and I haven't listened to.
It is so weird because you watch a couple of Colin Baker episodes and you're just like he's so brash and abrasive and
He's so undoctor.
well
some of
I don't even want
In
to say
some of them.
doctor, but he's just such a different take on that character that it's almost a complete turnoff. But then you listen to the Big Finish audios.
Keith.
I muted it.
Thank you, Canine. You listen to the Big Finish audios, and you don't have to listen to many. I've only listened to like maybe
Curb your dog.
3, I think. But they have figured out how to write for him. And you listen to this and you're like, oh, that's how he's supposed to be. And then you go back and watch him, and it has opened up this entirely new view screen on that particular time frame. And I enjoy Colin Baker's performance so much more, having had just a smattering of Big Finish, which was great. The relationship with him and Perry, it's still in that. I mean, it's kind of like every doctor's got that one companion. And obviously, Perry is. We're not going to go the other way, but Perry is Six's companion, much like Ace is Seven's.
Well, Perry was his only companion, with the exception of one story.
Yeah, which we won't,
In the series,
which we won't go there.
in the TV series.
But he completely
Mel's
threw my
fine.
train. No,
No, she's fine.
boo. Anyway,
She's no Perry, but she's fine.
Which Baker had the great line that I hadn't heard any other doctor but Tennant say of I'm a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation Castor Boris.
Castor Boris.
I don't remember any other Classic Who doctor saying that. So I think it's cool that RTD went back to that. I don't know if he went back
Fourth
to that
Doctor
line.
says that at some point, but I can't remember. I couldn't pull out of my databanks where that's come from, or maybe pieces of that throughout the Fourth
pieces
Doctor's
of it,
era.
I think,
Yeah.
Tom Baker
Never,
said.
maybe
I don't know
This
if
is
he
almost a
necessarily
direct.
ran it. Yeah.
RTD almost pulled this direct quote. He tweaked it a little bit, and he also had some other great lines like, "Will it believe you?" Perry says, and the doctor says, "If it doesn't, I shall beat it in submission with my charm."
Yeah.
There was such great
That's some
doctor
witty-
moments
yeah,
in this,
witty moments.
Well, and
that's what made me like him more.
That's the thing. The relationship with Perry is still new enough, and Perry catches a lot of crap, I think, for being argumentative and whiny and complaining.
An American.
An American. Which we won't talk about that today either. But and I mean, those elements are certainly there, and there certainly is that. Yeah, she is, but it works with her and Colin. The way that he just everything about that relationship, unlike some companions who are whiny, and you're just like, ugh. Perry's whiny never necessarily came across to me as whiny, because. Well, look who she's paired with. So there was a reason for being a little whiny there, and you get some of that in this episode. You get these little touches on it that are thrown in there. He's got some fantastic bits of dialogue. You mentioned the beating of submission. I was a little surprised when he hops down into the pit and beats up the police officer. Mm-hmm. That was violence off camera, but okay, we're all right with that.
Well, I think we tweeted Colin Baker was more of a man of action.
Yeah, I think that's the wrong term for Colin Baker, but he certainly was.
He wasn't afraid to mix it up.
Yes, there you go. Yes,
Yeah.
he was not afraid to mix it up.
He wasn't Pertwee, but
But
Who knows?
Pertwee
Maybe
was
he
more.
was utilizing that.
Pertwee
down
was
there.
more of a reserved, defensive doctor. When it came to mixing it up, it still was as a last defense. It was rarely ever a attack.
He never karate
The
chopped
sixth-
anybody over the back of the head for no reason.
The Sixth Doctor,
He did karate chop him
does
over
it
the
for
back of the
reason, but he's more gallant about it. He's more invasive and more proactive, other than reactive.
Yeah,
about
I suppose
it.
it's that.
Yeah.
There's an interesting link, and this will be something else that I'll get Glenn to add into the show notes. denofgeek.com has Doctor Who: The Top 10 Cybermen Stories by Rob Hill. Now, this was put out June 22nd of 2010, so it's a little dated now. But Attack of the Cybermen does hit number 6 on their list, and this is all-time, both new and old series. And he's got an interesting thing here. The story, if you do not have a working knowledge of the previous 22 years of Doctor Who continuity, makes as good as no sense whatsoever. And I'll be honest, I found myself falling into that. Because he goes on, the entire tale is a sequel to Tomb of the Cybermen, which aired 20 years previously. And except for a brief and rushed explanation from the Doctor, whilst held prisoner in his own TARDIS with whiny companion Perry and murderous associate Lighton, there's no effort made to give the viewer any backstory. No wonder things got so convoluted. And I kind of found myself in that thing, and I had to clarify with Glenn later after Friday Night Who. Well, of course, I'd missed Friday Night Who that week, so Mel and I caught up on Thursday. But it was like, okay, so when did this happen? And I didn't realize until after we had talked, and you'd set me straight on a few things on the chronology of when this story was taking place.
Well, and you in turn, in that discussion, set me straight on some things as well, because I realized that the timey-wimey that was going on here was even more in-depth than I was gleaming from.
I think initially when I sat down and watched this, I was confused, and I had gotten Mondos confused with Voga. I think is what was throwing.
Voga was Revenge of the Cybermen.
Which was Revenge of the Cybermen. Because I just couldn't wrap my brain around this is set in 1985.
Well, because we're also talking about Mondos
events of
and
86.
Telos in this. Yeah.
And we're referencing events of 86 that have to do with an episode from
10th Planet. That's 10th Planet
and Tomb of the Cybermen.
Right. No, let me interject here just briefly to get us back on track here. The events in Attack of the Cybermen are happening Earth time in 1985.
Right.
The events of 10th Planet in the Cybermen's past will take place in 1986
Earth time,
and that's when Mondos comes to the basically is hiding behind the moon in order to take over Earth at that point because Mondos is dying.
Right.
That's happening. But then we're also linking into Tomb of the Cybermen in another way.
That was the key part of it, is the fact that we're dealing with Telos and dealing with the events of Tomb of the Cybermen, which is projected to be a far in the future kind of story.
Tomb is, yes.
But yet we're dealing with these events. And
these events are happening almost straight after Tomb of the Cybermen.
And we're dealing with two different planets.
Yes, in Cybermen.
In two different time periods. But I couldn't quite... that was what threw me initially. After I talked to you, I finally got it figured out. But
I almost got the impression this was slightly before Tomb of the Cybermen, in Cybermen aspects, because there are still natives to Telos.
So what you're saying is that this is sort of a direct prequel to...
Yes.
Okay. I can see that in the sense that this is when the Tomb when the Cybermen are setting up their cryogenic. Exactly. I got you there. Okay, yes. Yeah. And I think you're right.
I can see that.
Because they are still trying to basically subjugate the natives.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I got no impression from Tomb that there were natives on this planet.
Yeah, it's either that or Tomb is an isolated area that we just didn't happen to see the rest of the planet.
That's
which is a possibility
too.
Cryons, by the way, is what we were trying to remember the name.
Cryons?
That is the
natives.
Natives. Yes.
We kept
I like the cryons in
Cryons
this.
We kept trying. Cool. Mel and I kept wanting to call them crinoids.
Crinoids. When we talked on Friday about it, I kept saying the crinoid. No, wait, and then you said no, that was the other. I was like, oh, you're
that's
right.
Scorby.
That's Scorby. Cryons is what we couldn't. We were struggling to come up with.
So he goes on in this Den of Geek article to say,
which is funny because cryogenics is freezing, and they had to have sub-freezing temperatures in order to survive. That just dawned on me now.
I thought that was why they were named that way.
Well, probably was, Keith, and you were more savvy to catch on to that than I was because
that part of the story
it didn't hit me until just now.
He goes on to say they even went so far as to have the same actor play the cyber controller as was cast in the original story, Tomb of the Cybermen.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's the same actor 20 years on.
I know it's supposed to be the same cyber leader.
In a full cyber suit, different design, where you can't see the face or any other identifying features. If that isn't pointless, I don't know what is. To make matters worse, said actor has put on a little timber around his midriff during the intervening years, which makes you wonder whether the scene where another Cyberman says, "It is a fat controller," is a flub or a rib, which was completely missed in editing. And I did think that to myself, as he has one of those great walk and talk speeches, and he comes striding around the thing in the Cyber Control Center, and I went, whoa.
That's one tubby Cyberman.
That Cyberman has let himself go a bit. I watched the documentary on this afterwards, and one of the things that I was struck by was, I can never pronounce his name, Eric Seward, I think. Seward.
Yeah.
As the script editor, when he commented on this, John Nathan Turner was very, very specific about he wanted to bring back the cyber controller. And Seward was not keen on the idea because in his mind, well, we've already got David Banks coming back to play the cyber leader, and he's such a great actor, and he gives that real gravatas to the role. And we've got a strong person playing his lieutenant. And both of these Cybermen are big parts of this. He says, why would you then want to muddy the waters with another talking head? And it dawned on me that I think is one of my main problems with a lot of these Cybermen episodes, is that so much of it is them standing around talking about what they're going to do instead of going out and doing it.
That's true. I certainly agree with that.
And I apologize, Keith, because I know you're a fan. I'm not dogging on the entire Cyberman race here.
I think the same thing happens with Daleks, too.
I agree with you. I love Barnaby Edwards and Nick Briggs.
They stand around and talk about what they're going to do.
Let's go do this.
That's true.
I think it's partially the storytelling of the time era. They were telling, not showing.
Yeah. I did not like the two escaped convicts who made it off the chain gang and teamed up with the other hapless jewel thief thug, only to get gunned down at the end of the journey. We made it to the spaceship. We're going to get the rocket off the planet and escape. Pew, pew, pew. Aw.
It felt like filler.
What was your purpose? You guys had no purpose being in this script. Give me more backstory on the Cryons. Give me more.
Yeah.
That whole sequence was A to Z ridiculous. My one complaint about this episode, which I really liked, except for that. I thought the Cryons were very cool.
Their design was really neat.
Yeah. Well, for being kind of bubble wrap-ish.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but now you say that.
We've seen worse use of bubble wrap in Doctor Who.
Well, you haven't seen them yet, but there are worse monsters.
Well, that's true.
Glenn knows the one I speak
There's
of.
a lot worse.
I thought the shock value of them coming in to the TARDIS and having Cybermen already inside. Now, we don't reveal how they got in.
Right.
But that's okay, because it was like, Cybermen in the control room.
Of course, the state of temporal grace is also thrown out in this one as well.
I'm going to blame that on
so
the
much
fact
for that.
the doctor disconnected a lot of wires trying to rehook up the
Well, that's true.
So
Yeah.
he probably unplugged that one.
Isn't that wonderful that we
chameleon
finally
circuit
get
was
to see
so
the
much
chameleon switch
fun.
work, and it works
Badly.
3 different times poorly.
Well, it worked for. The problem was it was in the junkyard. It could be anything.
And it's some sort of ornate pillar or clock or whatever. What was it?
And there was an
first
organ,
time.
too.
Well, the first time it was some like
It looked almost like a.
some ornate pillar of some sort. That just
You remember the Goonie golf course that had that
Yes.
weird kind of.
Yes.
It looked like that.
It was
Whatever
a
that
clock,
Was it a
I think,
clock?
is what it
Yeah,
was.
it looked like
that's why I
a
keep. I
very
think that's why I
clock.
keep going to clock, because one of our it's a miniature golf course here in Topeka, and it has this big clock, and there's a pendulum underneath it. You have to slide the ball under, and that's what it looked like. It was very similar to that. In fact, it was painted in that such a
Yeah,
way
it had
as well.
big daisy flowers.
pastel
it
pink.
was that was bizarre. And then the organ was very cool.
Which I thought it was great that the organ actually worked.
Works because he comes out and plays the keys. That was
And
fantastic.
I love the music cues that he comes up and the da-na-na, da-na-na, da, and then they walk off, and they used that as the transition to the next scene.
That was
Which, what else do you play on the organ but that?
Yeah. What scrapyard do they land in? None other than 76 Trotter Lane.
Yep.
Yes.
Which
a
looked a
little
lot
bit-
better in this than it did in.
But it's 20 years later. that's
Well, I
what
meant
Keith
in,
had pointed out, because he said there's no large sign. I said, well, at this point it's probably, I think I made some some silly comment about
retconning?
1985 they weren't allowed to have signs
Giant
larger than
sign,
billboards.
yeah.
Zoning
and everybody went,
ordinances.
really?
Zoning
No,
ordinances
that's not right,
were way
yeah.
different in
And
85.
then was it you or Chrissy that brought up the fact that, well, maybe they landed at the back gate?
I think I brought that up. Yeah.
And Chrissy, that's right, because then Chrissy said, I'll buy that. so they landed at another
A
gate. They had a
junkyard.
smaller sign at the back gate.
The junk, I mean, it looked a lot more junky than it did in
It did, it
66,
certainly
but it looked a lot better in this than it did in Remembrance of the Daleks when they reused it.
remember, Remembrance is a year after he left Trotter's Lane, so that's back in the 1960s
Right.
again. So
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, I've never felt like the one in Remembrance looked like Trotter's Lane. It
I
just looks like
suppose.
a junkyard.
Yeah.
This they actually kind of like.
Well, but you
I can
don't
buy
see
that.
much of it in an Unearthly Child either. So
no. You just see the big warehouse.
maybe
Well, in an
maybe
Unearthly Child,
Mr.
it almost looks like it's inside.
Maybe
Yeah.
Mr. Trotter was because it's been shot in a studio, but maybe Mr. Trotter was just getting started in 1962.
I'd buy that for a
So
dollar.
he didn't have a lot of junk around. And by 1985, he had accumulated 20-some plus years of junk.
Well, Remembrance
Foreman,
is a,
wasn't it?
Remembrance
Foreman
was
Trotter?
Yeah,
the Baker story, right?
Sylvester McCoy.
Okay. I was about to say how interesting that two Baker stories ended up there, but never
Yeah,
mind.
no, it was,
Yeah.
and
The
one
R's,
being a Cyberman story, the other being a Dalek story,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of a neat
Yeah.
book in there.
I want to talk about Lytton. I want to talk about Lytton.
Well, let's go with Lighton, because you guys might be right. If both of you guys remember Lighton, I'm probably misremembering it.
It sounds British to say like
Very cool to bring the same actor in the same part back for an entirely different story.
yeah.
However, he was this really bad mercenary in one story, and then we're trying to redeem him in this one. And that was the one thing that I had a problem with. Is this one they made him too lovable by the end, and the Doctor feeling like he had totally misjudged him in the beginning, even though he had some pretty nefarious means or reasons for what he was doing.
As soon as I made the connection that was who this was, which I made it before they explained it to me.
In fact, I think I kept pointing out to you guys because you guys hadn't realized that this was the same Lytton.
You had mentioned it to me before.
Oh, okay.
The episode.
And a lot of people were shocked.
I still
They were like,
fully
"What?"
don't remember him from that.
Yeah, he's
story.
the one that
He had-
leaves.
he had the eye stock.
He was the eye stock guy. He was
Okay.
working for the. He had the he had the
commander.
helmet with the eye stock. He was the head of that group.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he ends up taking the transmat back to Earth and walking off. And there's
He just leaves.
Yeah, well, it wasn't until you
which I
mentioned
knew.
that.
And I knew then. I even knew then he was coming back. I was
Well, he
like,
takes the
oh,
two
we get to
cops
see him
with
again.
him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which that was another part of that story that was never fully explained, and they
Right.
brought the cops back for this story,
Yeah.
which was never fully explained. It's like, okay,
Yeah, working for
and what
part
happened
of
to
his
the cops?
crew.
They just disappeared. The Doctor and Perry come back, and
right.
the handcuffs there, and he's
right.
like, "Our Cybermen, yeah, this probably explains that." And he just rolls it off like, "Okay, now wait, that doesn't work because if they were Cybermen back in the Dalek story, that really
Well, they
doesn't
were
fit."
Robomen.
Robomen. Yeah, I'll buy that for $1. But so we get Lytton, and through the whole thing, I'm looking at him going, "I don't trust you. I know what you're like."
Yeah.
Although, kind of a Shane from Walking Dead. Shane makes these very, very unpopular decisions, but they're right for
he just goes about them
for
in the
what's
wrong
going on.
way.
And in a way, that's kind of what Lytton reminded me of in the Dalek story. Is he kept pushing Davros to, "We've got to get out of here. We've got to go do this. We've got to." It's like, don't argue with this guy. He's your liberator. He knows of what he speaks. And I kind of felt almost the same way about him because of that in this story. It's like he's up to something. This guy doesn't walk into a room without a plan.
When he was, he came across with that air the whole time that he was up to something.
Yeah.
That he had some sort of plan calculated.
So then he gets captured, air quotes, by the Cybermen, and he's like, "Oh, I can help you do this, and I can help you do that." And they're like, "Okay, what do you want in return?" And it's like, "A ride home." It's like, really? It's Turlo all over again. What are you gonna? Should I go get the rock now, or just, And I don't know. It was that part I thought was that he's that willing to get off Earth. He's that desperate to get off Earth that he'll take any available help, even
Right.
Cyberman help. I was like, I don't know about that. But I thought it was kind of fun that because he had this very Snape atmosphere to him, that I didn't trust him, I didn't trust him, I didn't trust him, all the way up to the end. And he kept doing these things, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? And it's not until the doctor says, yeah, I think I misjudged him, and then it ends with, was that bizarre or what, that I went, wait, you mean he was actually a good guy? He actually did come to help? He wasn't just using these people for...
I think he
I don't know
himself.
if I don't know if he was... I don't know if I voiced this out loud when we watched that night, but I certainly know I was shouting this on Twitter. Lighton tried to shoot and kill the doctor in the Daleks episode. And at the end, when the doctor said, I don't think I really misjudged him, I kept saying... But he tried to kill you. I don't care what he's doing now. He tried to kill you. That was my biggest problem with it, was that the Lighton character seemed to feel, we want to expand on this character and kind of try to make you feel different for him than you did and surprise you with that value that he has, and that didn't work so much for me. But
when the Krynoid, not Krynoids, Cryons.
Cryogenic.
Wow. When the Cryons are she's revealing her story of, oh yeah, Lighton's working for us, and he came to help us do this, and we're going to kick the Cybermen off our planet, and you realize, well, I didn't realize it, but they set it out there that yes, this has all been a ruse, and he actually is working for the good guys, and yet I don't trust him.
He was working for whoever paid him.
Well, he was working for whoever. He's a mercenary, but who? Now, see, if they could have got Scorby, he'd have won. He'd have given them Cybermen what for and kicked them off. Tell us.
That's right.
But you just through the whole thing, I'm going, there's something not right here. And even when he's in the cyber controllers thing, and the very graphic gripping of the wrists and blood pouring down his arms, and they're crushing him, and I was like, so what's his angle? I have to fully credit the job they did with the Dalek episode that made me this set in my way that this is who this guy is.
Yeah.
That despite everything they threw at me in this one, I still didn't buy it. I thought that was a really interesting twist on that character, and I look forward to going back and watching this one again to kind of glean a little bit more about what's up and what's going on. And
I would have to agree.
I also just want to throw out there on a side note, and I don't understand why, because I'm sure they were probably tailored the same. Perry looks amazing in the blue spandex, not so much in the hot pink, and I don't know why.
Oh yeah, it's totally the same design.
I think pink's just not a color.
It could be.
I think so. I mean, there are some colors that aren't flattering on some people.
Perry in pink is still about a gajillion times better than most of some of what the other companions have been stuck with. But it just, I was like, wow, kind of missed the blue. And then they put clothes on her when they got to the coal plant. I was like, why don't we go to the beach planets?
Let's move on to Silver Nemesis.
Silver Nemesis.
This was the second part of our adversary archive.
Earth, 1988. While the Doctor and Ace flee from emotionless men wielding futuristic pistols, neo-Nazi Herr de Fleurs is intent on heralding the Fourth Reich. Meanwhile, the villainous Lady... There's a star right
Pinafort.
Pinefort.
Okay, we can go with that.
Pinafort.
I'm going to call her Lady Fancy Pants.
Fancy Pants.
I like Chris.
I think it's Pinafort.
Uses a black magic to propel herself forward from 1638 for a final confrontation with her sworn enemy, the Doctor. And at the same time, a spacecraft full of Cybermen sets down on Earth. As the Doctor desperately evades multiple enemies, a meteor containing a Gallifreyan superweapon is hurtling ever nearer to the planet. Whoever is able to unite the Validium statue...
Validium? Yeah.
Validium statue with its bow and arrow will hold the power of life or death over the entire universe.
Is that the end of it?
That's the end of it.
Da-na-na. Actually, I'm going to give it a little stronger da-na-na. I'm going to give it a da-na-na.
I'll take it this time.
There's a lot of plot holes in this story. You could drive a truck through some of them,
I don't even know that they're...
but it's so entertaining.
Should I say they're not even so much plot holes as they are just
It doesn't make
misguided
sense.
plot points. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like we
They
didn't go anywhere.
don't fully explain what the Nemesis truly is.
I think
Why the Cybermen are after it. Why all these different parties are after it.
the better part of this year, since we've started this podcast, I think I've given Silver Nemesis a lot of grief because, and I think our listeners, especially those that joined in Friday night, who have picked up on that. This has never been one of my favorite stories. It's tainted by the fact that it is a Seventh Doctor story.
I love the Seventh
It's
Doctor in
tainted
this.
by this fact that it because people know I'm not a fan of the Seventh Doctor. It's tainted by the fact that, as we said, that the plots don't ever develop. Nothing really goes on. You don't really understand why anybody is chasing anything. Although I think that's typical of a lot of Seventh Doctor stories.
I'll agree with that.
However, this time I was able to sit down and I was able to watch this and focus on the Doctor and focus on Ace. And I was able to focus on both Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred's performances in this time. Having seen this for the third time now, I was able to watch this with different eyes, and I thoroughly enjoyed both of them in this. And I think that's why I walked away from this one having liked it better because of those performances. It's overall still is a story. I can't say that I like it, although it's not horrible. There's certainly worse Doctor Who out there. I don't want anybody to give the impression that this is my least favorite story, because it's not. But it falls flat through the whole thing, and it also feels rushed. It's only 3 episodes, which it's funny for me to say something like that because there's a lot of 4-episode story arcs that I go, wow, that could have been 3 episodes or 2 episodes.
I
this
think
one feels like there was too many elements for just 3 episodes.
I think if they would've-
we've got the Nazis, we've got the Cybermen, we've got the
Lady Fancypants.
Renaissance people coming back.
I think if they would have cut out
coming forward.
Lady Fancypants, I don't think contributed much to this story.
Well, she's just got
I think
this.
if they would have cut
she's just
her
got this
out,
vengeful streak is all she's got.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just she's,
if they would have cut
All
her out,
things shall be mine.
if they would have cut her out of this story and expanded on why they're after this, it would have been such a better story. I think that's where you could have cut.
yeah.
Here's the thing: the Validium, you do get a bit of it. They at least for my purposes, they explained enough of it to kind of explain what it was. It's not a throwaway line, but the way Sylvester McCoy rattles it off, it almost feels like a throwaway line. That this is basically a Gallifreyan weapons platform that has been spirited off world and crashed on Earth, and
That gives it some authority.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
So this is a real. This isn't this isn't some schmuck with a dirty bomb. This is a Gallifreyan weapons platform.
Right.
Which I found it interesting. It's whatever they want it to be.
Yeah, living metal.
It wouldn't have. Well, it's Nemesis because Lady Fancypants wants it to be Nemesis.
And she was the one who found it originally.
Yeah.
Or at least you were led to believe that.
If she wanted it to be love, it could have been love. Is the impression I got. It could have been peace on Earth. I mean, it could have been anything.
It's vengeance for her.
Yeah.
But how did she get there?
That's,
Potions.
Yeah, well, yeah. See that
Black
is
magic.
The Doctor rattles off that she's got a smattering of time travel knowledge, some sort of potion chemical things, and he refers to it as black magic, and that's one of those.
Yeah, that's when I winced.
I can buy the fact that he's going to write it off as black magic because he says it in such a way that it's distasteful for him to even black magic, like to even utter it is like, ugh, I can't believe we're going to talk about that. But the fact that he does throw in the smattering of time travel and that there were potions and she had the arrow, maybe there's some sort of combination of things that allowed it to work.
Yeah, I suppose the arrow lends it some science
Because it
credibility.
would maybe pull toward the
Wherever it is.
and we've seen.
I didn't want to go too deep into that because I think I've been berating the use of magic and religion in Doctor Who a lot lately.
Well, we've seen Vortex travel without a capsule.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
this could be, another form of that.
The time ring travels without a capsule.
Yeah.
So. And it is Gallifreyan technology. So.
I agree with you that I would have rather had more of the what is Nemesis and less of Lady Fancypants, because Lady Fancypants did not lend any.
And then she goes mad
to the story. And the cyber leader, God love David Banks for being able to deliver lines like this. I presume with a straight face, but I can't tell because he's got the helmet on.
It probably wasn't.
They're standing there outside her crypt, and he's making some sort of thing about, and now we'll see where the human female will go mad. She'll go insane trying to figure this out. And you hear her scream inside the tomb, and then he's like, okay, go kill her. And it felt very much like this was the plan. She's gonna go in and discover that this isn't here and go insane. That's the Cybermen plan. But now we're gonna kill her anyway. And then it comes as a surprise to him when she comes sauntering up to him in the warehouse at the end of the thing, babbling about all this is mine, and he's like, the human female has gone mad. And you're like, that wasn't part of the deal?
Well, I think part of it, he expected her to be dead.
Well, I certainly think that's probably true, too.
And then, as you mentioned,
not only is she
after
dead,
watching
she's gone mad.
Wait a minute. The Cyberman plan worked.
For once. The Nazis are, I don't know. There were times when I remember watching this originally when it came out and when it aired. This was one that I did on VHS. This is one that I did watch on VHS. And I remember watching it going,
I borrowed this on VHS.
Wow, Nazis.
What a bold move for a
children's
show.
I really
Neo-Nazis.
I remember thinking that.
Not only Nazis, neo-Nazis. The idea that Nazis...
Uber ultra neo-Nazis. You just keep putting titles in front of them. They make them worse.
We're not just Nazis. We're extreme Nazis.
It's like the ultimate nachos at Taco Bell.
That's the problem. Is they're supposed to be ultimate Nazis, and they're more like ultimate nachos because they just don't do anything.
The Nazis seeking out this weapon as well. It's very Indiana Jones Nazis.
Yes.
We're looking for the supernatural or the alien technology or anything that we can get on to gain an upper hand in this war.
Which at this point, it's
in 1988 or 86, whatever this is taking place in, 88.
Well,
you're going to need something, I guess, in order to bring Nazism back to
They make reference
society.
to the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, all right. Well, then that's what they're doing, is they're setting up this new era of Nazi.
I'm sorry, but isn't that what every neo-Nazi's trying to do?
Well, and that's just it. These are very, very caricature-ish Nazis. I mean, it's ripped right out of the Indiana Jones story arc, and we're dealing with the Fourth Reich, and they come from Brazil or South America.
I didn't think their accents were as caricature as they could have been.
No, that's true. That's a good point. They really didn't emphasize their accents.
They didn't bother almost at that point. It was like, yeah, okay. And I guess if you've been living in Brazil, and maybe you don't have quite as heavy of a German accent at this point. But this paramilitary group, they show up and they've got paintball guns and they go to town on the Cybermen and nothing happens. And it's like cannon fodder, go, boop, 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 and they all start falling down dead. And that's when I tweeted this out. It's like, I will say this, that first battle that we get between them really felt like some vintage Pertwee. It was definitely what are the guys' names? Havoc, the group that would go out and do all of the the military stunt work and things. It felt very much like that, with guys falling off catwalks and stuff, and that was cool. Now, this is something that Keith's not going to want to hear, but I'm going to launch into it. The Cybermen of the 80s really have a rough time of it. The Cybermen of this story suck.
Yeah, they really do.
They are horrible.
I made the comment that this to us was, I would hope that you would have thought that this to you would have been the way we explain closing time in the 11th Doctor. That the Cybermen just happen to be there and are very underused.
I would agree. And out of all the classic Now, aside from what's missing, I've seen all of the classic Cyberman stories. And while this was enjoyable, this was my least favorite Cyberman story.
They just don't do anything. They show up and they get their butts kicked up one side and down the other. And now, part of this I'm going to fully attribute to the coolness of Ace.
Ace is very cool.
Ace is...
That's what makes the story Ace and the Doctor.
Yeah.
I
totally
agree.
makes it
totally
makes it
I'll say that
And
again.
I
I
have-
totally enjoyed their performances.
I've gone on record in saying that I have not been impressed with Ace. I've said I don't see what the big deal is.
Now you're getting it.
Now I'm getting it.
When they sit down and he's looking out there and he's totally focused, and just as an aside goes, I don't suppose you disobeyed me and created any more of the nitrate. And she says, of course not. He goes, and I don't suppose you've done anything as stupidly dangerous as to carry it around with you. No, I'm a good girl. Good. Go blow up the spaceship. And she grins and takes off. This is the reason we love Ace. This is the only companion you could hand a magnetized baseball bat and say, go kill the Dalek.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she'd do it.
Absolutely.
And you got some of that? Go blow up the spaceship. So the Cybermen land, and they lose their spaceship. Boom. I mean, they're on Earth all of 3 minutes. And
Almost. Yeah.
I mean, what happens to the cyber leader when you get back and have to report that? Where's the audit
A
commission?
young Earth girl blew up our
Where do you
train.
have to report this? And you're like, I mean, they're fresh off the boat. They're standing there. They're getting ready to plant the flag and the whole bit. And all of a sudden, and they look around behind them, and the ship's on fire. It's like, who left the door open?
I'm sorry, son. They got us.
Where do you go with that? So then, Ace continues to amaze and astound by taking out an entire platoon with a slingshot and a bag of gold coins.
Which
Does this make her
They-
uber cool, or does it make the Cybermen that poor?
did they bring in gold back in? They didn't bring gold back into Earthshock, did they?
Yeah, that's what
They
he
did?
destroys
Okay.
the
the end,
cyber leader in the end with
okay,
Adric Star.
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
he crushes it into the ventilator.
But
which
that
is-
was the only one.
which is how it's supposed to work. The reason why the Cybermen are, I'm doing air quotes again for the listeners, allergic to gold is because gold dust,
The dust.
gets into their ventilators, their ventilation plates on their chests, and basically chokes them out so that they can't breathe. They can't get air. There's still beings inside. There's still organic beings inside. They still require air, and so they can't breathe, and it chokes them out.
That's the problem
Now,
I had with this
in
story.
Earthshock, it still sort of works because the Doctor is crushing the star into the ventilation
Yeah.
plate. And so you assume that gold is getting into that plate and creating the clog that will then in turn kill the Cybermen. I'm okay with that. Now we're shooting gold-tipped arrows at the Cybermen
I
into
touched
their
on that
ventilation plates, and then they're shorting out and dying. And
I had problems with that too.
It's frustrating.
well, it's gold. They're vulnerable to gold.
It's frustrating because the Cybermen blow up really well.
Yes, they do.
I mean, you watch this, and it's like bam, boom, psh, and sparks fly everywhere.
The first
It's like,
time the
wow.
Nazis shoot at them, the one Cyberman stumbled back, and I was like, "What? Oh, okay. He's coming back from that."
Which I think they were much, and this is actually a little difficult to say. I think the Cybermen in this were much better portrayed on the deaths part of it
Yeah.
than they were in Attack of the Cybermen, when it seemed like you could walk up to them and hit them with a pipe and they fell over.
Yeah.
Or you
absolutely.
decapitate
Well,
them. Or what
yeah.
it's like,
Let me
really?
say that's the problem with that this whole gold stigma has created is somewhere along the line, gold became kryptonite
Yes.
to the Cybermen. But in the past, we have proven that there are other ways to kill Cybermen.
Yeah.
However, we had this one story that introduced the gold element, and from then on, everybody decided that they had to utilize gold in order to defeat the Cybermen. And
Aside
it's
from
not
attack.
necessary. That's why the gold-tipped arrows were not necessary. We saw the robot. What's the name of the robot in Five Doctors? How come I can't remember the name? The Raston robot destroy many Cybermen that just kept coming with just the tools he had. There was no gold in those. I'm sorry. The gold arrows. It was like somebody said, well, we can't just kill them. I know, gold arrows. No, that's not the way it works.
It's almost like the only reason to bring Lady Fancypants into this story was because they needed the supply of gold. We'll give her gold arrows, and then the Doctor will go back to her time and pick up the bag of gold coins.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Because he's got a TARDIS, and I'm sure in one of those rooms somewhere, there's probably, a big filing cabinet type setup.
With a bag of gold dust.
And maybe some jewels or something. We saw that in 8. Why not? But, so... The Cybermen deaths are a lot better, but man, there's a lot of them because they go down. I mean, she runs through that thing and takes out. We counted 4, almost 5 that Ace is directly responsible for with just a slingshot.
Yeah, the leader just happened to be more resistant.
And then how many did Fancypants take out with arrows? 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Yeah.
Speaking of gold dust, I'm glad they got away with that with the new series. And Stephen Moffat almost completely discounts that in the fact in Pandorica, the Cybermen's trying to get another body into him. It's still going on.
Right.
It's still living.
Right.
Without
the cybernetics are still working.
There's no organic.
Gone,
but
it's trying to find another organic host.
Yeah.
Sorry, I still keep... and he falls over dead. That's just awesome. You touched on the Sophie Aldred, Sylvester McCoy, and watching this
wonderful
episode,
their chemistry is
gosh.
This is where this is one of the shining examples that I'll put up as my Exhibit A. And I really don't understand why you don't like Sylvester McCoy.
Oh, I would agree. This was a fantastic Sylvester McCoy Doctor story.
Well,
he had so many great moments in this.
I sort of explained this at the beginning here, but Sylvester McCoy's era has so many stories that I don't like.
Oh, there's some clunkers,
and that's the problem. Is I have always watched them with that. Again, Sylvester McCoy was the Doctor that I had never seen until recently, or within the last 15 years, 10 years even. And so I started watching those, and the stories are such clunkers that I never could appreciate Seven for what he is. And in fact, as the seasons go on, and we get into that last season, that 26th season, and his Doctor, it's like he finally gets his footing, and he really takes the Doctor on this turn where he's just more of this dark. Even 25 is the same way, but
this one's actually kind of the first,
right?
Oh I totally see the dark.
Well, even Remembrance is that too. He does that little. He starts that turn as the Doctor, and I really start to appreciate him. And then his tenure runs out, but not to his fault. But then it's done. It's over. But there are so many clunkers in his season that I just associate Seven with all of those stories, and I've never been able to enjoy Seven. That's why I said, going back to this one, I think I liked it better because I was able to just focus on the Doctor and Ace's story in this, knowing that all of the rest of it's nonsense. I focused on those two because those are the two that we have to focus on because they're the ones that are going to fix this and rectify it.
Yeah.
And I totally enjoyed the Seventh Doctor in this one. And I think as I go back and rewatch, because I've seen all of the Seventh Doctor's era save one, which I'm only 2 episodes shy of. And going back now, watching these again, I'm enjoying Seven better because I'm just focusing on Seven, and I'm just focusing on Ace. And so I'm getting more out of it, and I'm actually enjoying Seven more. But there's just always been this stigma with Seven that these stories that he's in are just horrible. They're not good. I don't like the opening theme song. I know this is one of your favorite renditions. The theme song has changed so much. The opening graphics have changed so much. The sexy wink is just wrong.
I like the sexy wink.
All of it culminates into this my distaste for that 3 seasons that Sylvester McCoy was the Doctor.
I don't like the logo.
No,
I don't mind the big, gigantic Who letters when they come tumbling. I think that's cool, but I don't like the little.
The Seventh Doctor is almost has too much flair to him at times too, and so when he's able to dial back that flair, rolling the R's, doing the just the grand gestures, the very dramatic Doctor. If he can rail it back, I'm much more enjoying, and I think he did in this one. I'm much more enjoying of him, but he's always unfortunately going to have that albatross around his neck that he's in so many bad stories with me. So that's why I've always had this sour taste in my mouth with 7.
I guess I've gone to it more open-minded, and all of the Doctors, I've seen all the Doctors, and I've always enjoyed the Doctors in the stories, despite the quality of the stories.
That's a good way to look at it. I mean, because there are. I mean, even our beloved Tom Baker's got some. Wow, really?
Well, but I came to that one with younger eyes too, where a lot of that stuff didn't matter to me.
That's your Doctor.
I was introduced to 7
specifically some of the later ones.
I was introduced to 7 at an old age, and that worked against him as well.
So I wonder if that would have changed your opinion somewhat had it been a little different.
Yeah, if I'd have been younger,
because I like the fact that we get the Doctor and Ace hanging out listening to jazz. I think that's a wonderful.
And then they tie that back in with the autograph she gets in the cassette tape. And jamming the signal.
I love the fact that the Doctor has built her a new cassette player to replace the one that was destroyed by the Daleks. This is wonderful.
But it's not just a boombox.
No, it's got a lot more.
If you're going to carry this awful thing around and make me listen to it, we're going to do it my way. We're going to listen to jazz, and it's also going to be able to have a view screen and a transportation device and a jamming signal. And and I was impressed.
It's going to be a TARDIS away from the TARDIS.
I was impressed with the graphics when they fire up the dish and the little
ball comes up. I mean, we talked about how
holographic stuff.
We were starting to use computers for a lot of those generated effects by that time.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of that looks clean and very cool.
I liked the when they're laying on the hillside, just jamming out, listening to the jazz, and he flips up over backwards down the hill because it's going to be easier to get up that way. Just
it's those little things.
Those are the little things.
That I don't like,
the chess match in the tomb. To put the bow in the Nemesis chamber, that part is a bit much. Yeah. That one's one of those grandiose ones that'll give you. It's fun, and I don't mind it. It's one of those I get giddy, kid-like again watching that, and I'm willing to let that go. But I agree with you that that's probably a bit much. But there's just so much good stuff. Now we also get the very tip of the iceberg with the Who is the Doctor and trying to reintroduce that mystery here. When Lady Fancypants comes and says, I know your secrets. And he actually looks concerned for just a moment.
Yeah.
I know who you are. And Ace looks concerned. He hasn't told you, has he, child? It doesn't matter. And she's trying to be loyal because that's who Ace is. Oh, but what if I told you this? And then David Banks has to go and ruin it. We don't care. We're not here for that. You are. You're after a Gallifreyan weapons platform. Of course you're interested in Time Lord secrets, but okay, we'll let it go. Yeah. What did you think of that?
The Doctor Who?
Especially coming at it from New Who eyes, where we've kind of delved into that a little bit now with the Who is the Doctor. It's almost like Moffat's resurrected that.
I that's kind of how I viewed it, is Moffat brought that back. Because I try to go into classic Who as in this came first, regardless of what we watch. And I it almost felt like it was an idea that, having not seen much of the Seventh Doctor, it's an idea that they didn't get to explore properly.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that Moffat brought it back and is going to explore it. Hopefully. I mean, we'll find out, obviously, because it hasn't happened yet. But I like the fact that he's brought that back. And it almost ties... It's a tie-in to Series 6.
Yeah.
Series 6 ties into Silver Nemesis.
It really does. I remember at the time the Silver Nemesis, because it was regarded as the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary.
Yes.
25th?
25th.
25th. Oh, because silver, right?
20th would have been, yeah.
that was actually the guy who wrote it. That was one of his comments. He's like, it's the 25th anniversary story. I got to do something. What's an anniversary? Silver. Okay, who's Silver? Cybermen. Okay, go. I mean, that was literally his thought process of why they're in the story.
Yeah, they're interjected because of that. They wanted to bring back a Doctor Who villain that was...
But I remember reading or watching the little documentary that was on the VHS with this, and some of the little blurbs that they commented on with, when he came around the corner of the production houses when they went out on location, and he turned the corner, and there the TARDIS was sitting in the field, and how he got choked up because there it was. I mean, it was just that, and that's something that's kind of the same thing that I took away from Galley when I saw it there in the thing. It was like, oh, there it is. It didn't matter that it just everything else melted away, and there it was. And those are the moments that I think, going back and watching this again, I remember this story. And again, as like you commented earlier, the memory cheats. I remember this episode being a real clunker. I remember liking it. I remember liking it for all the things that we've talked about with Ace and the Doctor and the portrayals and the fun. And that particular kind of stuff. When you see the TARDIS, when you see this. And man, he got really good at short trips in this because he was pouncing all over the place with pinpoint accuracy. But there was so much of it that I remember not liking. Going back and watching it now, I don't know if it's just that I'm more forgiving of it, which I very easily could be. Maybe I'm just more. Maybe there's just more that I enjoy than I didn't, that I'm willing to let it go by. But it's not nearly as horrible as I remember. I mean, I remember as a kid going, ugh. I own that one. It was really disappointing. And I didn't get that this time out. Yes, still some cringing with Lady Fancypants. But
Was there anything else we can say about this one?
I think that's about it. We've waxed on pretty eloquently for
And now
3
we have
episodes.
For everything that's been released, we've now touched on all of the Cybermen episodes.
Yeah.
well,
although
eventually we'll
we have the
technically.
novelization of the Moonbase.
We have not
We
yet.
do have novelization of the Moonbase. There's a recon of 10th Planet, which I suspect in the following year or two will probably get a reconstruction proper with some animation, since there's only one episode missing.
We have not yet reviewed
Spare
Revenge
parts.
of the Cybermen.
Spare part. Well, we
Well,
haven't reviewed.
You've seen it, but we haven't
That's
properly
right.
reviewed it yet.
Well, there's a reason
but
why
there's
we
a
haven't done
reason that we held off
Yeah.
and skipped that one. So we'll.
There is completely a reason. We have to.
I don't know what that reason
well,
is.
you'll get the nice little subtle surprise when we get
It's
there.
a surprise, and for those of you that are,
It's not a huge surprise. It's just there's
it's a fun little.
there's a method to our madness.
There's a yin and
Oh,
yang.
I
aspect to
assume
that.
there is.
For those that are interested, Silver Nemesis did come in at number 7 on the
Wow, that's high.
on the top Cyberman stories.
It was the top 10?
Top 10 Cyberman stories.
What
It was
are,
number
what
7.
are, what are 8, 9, and 10?
Number 10 is Revenge of the Cybermen.
Really?
Number 9 is The Next Doctor.
I could see that.
Number 8 is Army of Ghosts / Doomsday.
What?
7, Silver Nemesis. 6, Attack of the Cybermen. 5, Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel. 4, The Invasion. 3, The 10th Planet. 2, Earthshock. And number 1, not really any surprise, Tomb of the Cybermen.
I would agree where they placed Doomsday and Army of Ghosts. Was that
Army of Ghosts Doomsday number 8.
I guess I
would-
could see that because
as a
it's-
Cyberman story, that's where I would place that on this list. As a Dalek story, it would place higher.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because it's really the Cybermen are just a vehicle for
The Daleks.
the Daleks in this one.
I'm surprised that the first Dalek or the first Cyberman 2-parter in series 2 is as low as it is.
I'm not because it's
It's
another world.
Elseworld. It's Elseworld Cyberman, but it's still I thought was a good story.
What's coming up next week, Sean?
It's a fascinating article. If you want to read it, I highly recommend it.
I'm gonna have to
link
read
in the
it.
show
Give,
notes.
give it a shot. Next week, I'm so excited. Our Friday Night Who coming up on the 16th. We finally return to some Tom Baker. We haven't seen him on the program since our Halloween specials.
Didn't we promise that we wouldn't have Tom Baker for a long time?
We did.
now?
So we kept
It's
that.
been
This is the end
several
of our.
months.
This is the end of our long time.
It's been 6 months since we've had any
It
Tom
hasn't
Baker.
been 6 months.
It's been 6 months.
No, it hasn't.
October. October.
5
It's
months.
only 5 months, and not
It's
even
March
that.
now.
Yeah, but not even. But it was Halloween of
last one
October. So
was-
at the end of this month, it'll even be 5. So it's been like 4.5 months.
That's a long time for me.
That is a long time to go without
It
Tom
was
Baker.
November because
It's
we
a long
watched
time for
Invasion of Time.
us.
I
That's
forgot
right.
We did
We did
Invasion
watch
of Time. We did that
Invasion
one in
of Time as
November.
well.
So, all right, it's a long time for us. Anyway, we're back to Tom Baker, which I'm very excited about, with a new release in North America. Comes out Tuesday. So by the time you listen to this, it may be out. There are 2 of them coming up, and we're going to do both of them. We're going to for this week on the 16th, we're going to do The Face of Evil. Next week, Friday Night Who, we're going to do. Did I say Tuesday? Tuesday's when it releases. Obviously, we're watching it on Friday
We'll
night.
watch it Friday.
Face of Evil.
And that's the last Tom Baker to be released. Or yeah.
No. Terror of the Zygons. Is
Oh, we
still
don't
not
have Terror
out.
yet. You're right. I forgot about
And I
Terror.
think there might be one other one.
I heard an interview.
They've all been announced now.
They've all been
That's
announced.
what I'm
though.
thinking.
Well, no, because
No, Terror hasn't.
Yeah,
either.
Terror, it is for the UK, because I think Terror comes out late this year. And so we were assuming
well.
if we're in line
We'll get it sometime
with,
this year.
with
then.
the UK. Yeah,
Yay, Zygons!
yeah I think
I had heard an interview saying they were thinking of saving Zygons for the very last.
well, it would be very last of Tom Baker's run.
Well, no,
because
in
that's
general.
it. Oh, well, it would make sense because if they're trying to spread out Tom.
I was listening to the Radio Free Scaro interview with one of the guys from the Reconstruction team
okay.
for To Entertain, and he talked of there was a possibility of they might save Zygons for very last, but then he kind of also backpedaled saying, well, we might not after all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Well, I hope that we still continue to get some special editions in there, too. But,
I mean, they're still going to release things.
yeah. Okay, so anyway, Face of Evil, which is the introduction story of Leela.
Ooh, yay!
We're going to do that. And then the following week, on the 23rd, we'll do Robots of Death, which is the very next story. So you're going to get 2 back-to-back that make sense and not part of a trilogy. We're just going to do 2 just for you, Keith.
How fun.
Our show next week, this is where you all have homework coming up. Our show next week, number 64, is going to be a return to Paul McGann's Big Finish audios. We're going to do the next 3 of his stories, although not necessarily the next 3 chronologically.
They're not.
If you follow the Big Finish numbering system. Which is going to be number 19, Minuet in Hell. Number 28, Invaders from Mars.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize there was such a big gap.
And number 29, The Chimes of Midnight.
Now, those are his sequentially, but there were other Doctor stories.
Yes,
in
there were other
between
Doctor stories
19
in there.
and
Now,
20.
chronologically, from a story arc that's going on within McGann's 8th Doctor's timeline, these are all sequential.
Yes.
So we're going to pick up kind of where we left off. Kind of. Yes. But so those will be the next 3, and we're going to talk about that. So you've got 1 week to knock out 3 Big Finish audios, and then the following week we'll do a companion archive on Leela and talk about the 2 Big Finish or the 2 shows that we watched this week. So that'll be fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm
Looking forward to it.
I get to see an introduction finally.
Yeah, long time coming.
All right. Well,
I'm
if you want to,
going to throw one more thing
Sure, go
out there. Talking about the gold and the Cybermen, I'm calling it now. That IDW Star Trek crossover, the communicators are gold. At one point, a Star Trek communicator is going to get shoved into a Cyberman breathing plate. You heard it here. It's going to happen.
something I noticed this
New
week
series Cybermen
watching
don't really have breathing plates.
Doesn't matter.
watching this week's episode, something else I realized is that both Doctor Who and Star Trek have stories with Nemesis in the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the same, but just it kind of struck me. This week.
I had to go. I was thinking, where's he going with that? I had to. It was really the mental filing cabinet was open and ready to sort, collate, and that's all you had.
That was it. That's all it was.
Both
Anyway,
Nemesis.
I do want
Nemesis and Nemesis.
I do want to throw out there, if you want to contact us, you can contact us by going to our website, travelingthevortex.com, or send us a direct email, which is, Keith?
Feedback at travelingthevortex.com.
We're also
there is a contact form on the website that will send it to that address.
We're also located on, where else can they get a hold of us?
They can get a hold of us on Facebook, where we are www.facebook.com/travelingthevortex. Please like our page if you like our podcast. They can also get a hold of us on Twitter. I'm at Vortex Sean.
I'm at Vortex Glenn.
I'm at Vortex Keith.
And you can follow the podcast at Travel Vortex. And not always do we tweet the same things. So
We also have a Google Plus page, which is also listed as Traveling the Vortex. And
Do we?
We do.
Is anybody on
Not
Google
very
Plus?
updated, no. Not a lot of people on there right now.
Are the Muppets in our circle?
I don't know, are they? I haven't gotten a video from them yet.
Falling down on the job.
And
The Google
of course, you
Voice
can find
number.
us, as we talked about earlier, on there's a Google Voice number as well. Nobody's called that in years.
Hey,
Some people might want to.
some people might want to. We love audio feedback, as Dr. Phil can attest.
All right, now you
It's,
make me
it's on
look
our
it up.
website.
All right,
Just
yeah.
go to our
Just
website.
go to our website and call
There's
it.
a Google Voice
I want
link.
Glenn to read it off.
There's actually a link
Look it
that
up,
you
Glenn.
can go to that.
For those people that may not have access to their computers or in their cars and think of something that they would like to comment on, what is our Google voicemail number, Glenn?
It's going to be a moment here.
I'll stretch out a little moment longer. So if you're in your car one day and you think, hey, I'd really like to send some feedback to the Vortex boys, yeah, you should put the contact us
Yeah,
button.
no,
There you go.
I don't ever go there because I know how to get a hold of us, unless I'm calling.
I'm going to start calling that number and fill out the voicemail box just to see what happens.
Our Google Voice number is area code 913-890-3025, and regular rates apply for
Long distance.
Remember, get your parents' permission first.
And finally, we do want to throw out again another plug for the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance, which we are on, and that's www.doctorwhopodcastalliance.org. There you go. That's all the ways you can get a hold of us. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Be seeing you.
I'm going to go back and play Pac-Man.
I got a pocket full of quarters and I'm headed to the arcade. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm bringing everything I made. I got a canvas on my finger and my shoulders hurting too. I'm gonna eat 'em all up just as soon as the time blue. 'Cause I got Pac-Man fever. It's driving me crazy. I got Pac-Man fever. I'm going out of my mind.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.